This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie. Scientists have discovered a new type of antibiotic using artificial intelligence, a major breakthrough in the fight against the growing problem of drug resistance. A new powerful algorithm was used to analyze more than 100 million chemical compounds in a matter of days. The newly discovered compound was able to kill 35 types of potentially deadly bacteria, said researchers. Antibiotic-resistant infections have risen in the recent years, up 9% in England between 2017 and 2018. If antibiotics are taken incorrectly, harmful bacteria living inside the body can become resistant to them, and the medicines may not work when needed. Since 2014, the UK has cut the number of antibiotics in use by more than 7%. However, the number of drug-resistant bloodstream infections increased by 35% from 2013 to 2017. The discovery was made using an algorithm inspired by the architecture of the human brain. Scientists trained it to analyze the structure of 2,500 drugs and other compounds to find those with the most antibacterial qualities that could kill E. coli. Astronomers with Catalina Sky Survey have spotted what might be a mini-moon, an asteroid that is temporarily captured by our planet's gravity. There are only a small percentage of passing space rocks that are likely to become mini-moons. According to a 2012 supercomputer simulation, including over 10 million virtual asteroids, only 18,000 got captured in Earth's orbit. They are very hard to spot and they are super rare. Our mini-moon will be on its way out of the Earth's orbit by April of 2020. However, it is possible that the simulation is incorrect, so observations are ongoing. Either way, by studying our mini-moon's strange looping orbit, we can learn more about how these objects are captured by the Earth and how we can look for them in the future. The University of Manitoba's Archives and Special Collections Unit received a private donation by Canadian ufologist Chris Rutkowski, adding 30,000 UFO-related materials to the university's psychic research and spiritualism collection, making it a hub for paranormal archival research in Canada. Shelley Sweeney, the recent retired head of Archives and Special Collections, said the artifacts donated by Mr. Rutkowski details various UFO sightings. The donation includes 20,000 UFO reports filed since 1989, 10,000 UFO-related documents from the Canadian government, and artifacts from a 1967 encounter with the UFO in Falcon Lake, Manitoba. Also, there are more than 2,000 books on UFOs and research from 10 books by Mr. Rutkowski. This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie.
Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS Peter.
The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from the realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Broadcasting from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop. We are live on the Fringe FM. It is Thursday night, It's February the 27th. As we move on into the 28th tonight, we welcome back outdoorsman, illustrator, podcaster, author, UFO researcher Mike Clelland is with us, author of The Messengers. Always a very interesting guy, and we can talk about the owl phenomenon until the cows come home. And so this is going to be an interesting conversation, I can assure you that, and that's coming up shortly. I want to give a thank you to our sponsors, Metaphorical Archaeology, Barbara Charlton, obviously, over at Metaphorical Archaeology. So that number is 214-995-3754. If you've had a paranormal experience that's caused you trauma or post-traumatic stress, that's who you're going to want to call for that. Also, getthetea.com and ancientlifeoil.com. And you can go to thefringe.fm/optics. Get you some night vision, telescopes, anything having to do with scopes and lights and outdoor stuff. It's a fantastic place to go. thefringe.fm/optics. I know Dirty Bacon got him a scope there, so that's pretty cool. And I want to thank Malorcas in the Fringe FM chat room for tweeting out his truck driving experience while he's listening to the show. That was pretty rad to see. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. And you guys can get to the Fringe FM chat by going to thefringe.fm/chat room. The link has changed. It's /chat room now. And make sure you just say hi to everybody there in the main hall. But there's a lot of different rooms for a lot of different things. You can also call into the show at 1-800-588-0335 whenever we decide to open up the phone lines. And if you want to keep a journalistic approach to ufology, please follow our partners over at UFO Seekers, at UFO Seekers on Twitter, and go check out their new seasons at youtube.com/UFO Seekers. Now, Mike Clelland on this show, if you've been a listener to this show, then he probably doesn't need an introduction, but we're going to do it anyways. Now, Mike is an avid outdoorsman, illustrator, UFO researcher, and author, podcaster as well. He's written extensively on the subject of alien abductions, synchronicities, and owls. And it was his firsthand experiences with these elusive events that have been the foundation for his research. His website, Hidden Experience, explores these events and their connections to the alien contact phenomenon. This site also features over 200 hours of audio interviews with visionaries and experts examining the complexities of the overall UFO experience. And beyond that, Mike is considered an expert in the skills of ultralight backpacking and has authored or illustrated a series of instructional books focused on advanced outdoor techniques. He spent nearly 25 years living in the Rockies and now lives in the Adirondacks. I'm probably saying that wrong. hiddenexperience.blogspot.com. Also, MikeClelland.com. Mike, it's good to have you back, brother.
Thank you so much. It's a joy.
You know, what have you been up to lately, man? It's been like a year since I talked to you. I heard you got your show now with Whitley and stuff. That is really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, I'm doing a podcast, a once a week podcast with Whitley Strieber. It's called The Unseen. And that's been great. You know, it was funny because it gives me a chance to like call up people that I haven't talked to in a long time. It's a really, doing a radio show or a podcast, I guess, is a really nice way to connect with people. Like you can have a really in-depth conversation so it's a great way to reach out to folks in the community, the tribe. Someone called it recently, the tribe, and then I just put out another book, a third book called Hidden Experience, and that is a collection of my blog posts of specific blog posts that talked about my journey. So in a way, it's a sort of memoir of my coming to terms with these experiences.
Yeah. Now, have you had any more, experiences lately? Or because it seems like the last time I talked to you, man, you were busy with a lot of things. You stay busy, man. If it's not writing or doing podcasting, you're always doing something now. Do you get to go outdoors and backpack much anymore?
Not as much as I wish I could, and which is fine in a way. I guess I'm sort of fully dedicated to this stuff, so I feel like it's engaging, and I'm kind of living my passion. So, but I still live in a beautiful place with a lot of outdoor stuff here in the Adirondacks. You were very close how you pronounced it. So,
yeah. See, I get that sometimes. I probably should have asked you beforehand, like, hey, how do I pronounce this? Because I hate not pronouncing stuff right. But ultralight backpacking I've talked to you about that. That is something really cool. But you know what else is really cool is I've had listeners here that have had experiences with owls. Not only that, Daniel Joseph came on, I think you should interview this guy because it's more of like in the mystic sense because he talks about this master guy, Dosklos, from the island of Cyprus, and we were talking about angels on the show. And he said, well, sometimes they'll come in visions of like owls and stuff. And he just kind of randomly brought that up. And I was like, wait a minute. And then I've got a listener who's reported to me that they had a vision of owls and like this angelic thing looking through a window with two owls looking at them. And I'm thinking, So I wonder sometimes, is it that owls are the symbol of something angelic, or are angels and aliens kind of the same thing,
That's the question, isn't it? That's what I've spent the last 10 years wrestling with. I don't have an answer. I wish I did. I should have an answer.
But there's something to it for sure, though.
There's something to it. So I would argue that the owl is like an archetypal image. It's an archetypal entity. Like we tap into it in a different way. The same way, like if you go see Star Wars, right? You see up on the movie screen, you see Luke Skywalker, and he's got his lightsaber, and he flies his fighter spaceship and has all these adventures. So on the surface level, you're seeing an action movie, but just below that surface level, you are seeing the archetypal story of a hero. So that would be the same thing with an owl. You are seeing the archetype of a messenger, and to take that one step further, it's not necessarily a angelic messenger so much, but more a messenger from a different realm. It's a message from an alternate realm. So that's a simple. I mean, I've been wrestling with how to define this archetype of the owl, and it's elusive, right? So every time it shows up, it's a little bit different, or it's, to say someone had an angelic vision of two owls looking in a window. I mean, that's very different than somebody actually having an experience with an owl when something, like you've talked about with the abduction kind of thing, or missing time stuff, with
right?
Missing time and the abductions and UFO contact, and even just UFO sightings. It's very common, very, very commonly reported. Someone will be walking through the woods. They'll look up at a treetop and then, good grief, there's an owl. How wonderful, how amazing. How often do you get a chance to see an owl? The owl flies off, and then moments later, a flying saucer hovers above them. That is very common.
Yeah, that's strange, man. That's strange. I really want everybody to, like, when they get the chance, if you haven't heard Mike's podcast, even the old stuff is still there, right? You're the one that you did before.
It's all archived. It's on iTunes and Stitcher and all kinds of places. Yeah. Easy to find. It's free. It's so easy.
Yeah. It's like one of the best podcasts out there to listen to. So if you've got one of those long drives, or it's just you want to listen to another podcast and want one that's worth it, that's definitely worth it. But
thank you.
No, you're welcome, man. And it was funny too, because I was talking to you about the Ozark conference that we're going to in April. It was the first time that I met you, and I had a booth next to you. But I was new to the scene too, man. I was new to all of this stuff, and our booth is right next to Mike's. And I look over to Dave, and I'm like, man, who's this guy? And Dave's like, oh, that's Mike Clelland. You hadn't heard of him? I was like, no, I don't know. Owls, what does that got anything to do with it? Like, I had I thought he was just some guy that was writing books about owls, man. It was like, well, I'll take advantage of this conference. Honestly, it didn't have a clue about any of this. And now I've kind of looked into it a little myself. And the more you read about it, the more you look into it, it's just strange. It's obvious that there's something to it, but it's like one of the strangest things ever.
It was interesting when I wrote that book, the first book, The Messengers. In a way, I wrote the book that I always wanted to read, right? So I always loved, like, John Keel, who wrote the Mothman Prophecies. He had this kind of way of, like, weaving this very strange, mystical story into his works, and that was what I wanted to try to do with that, and that was what was presenting itself. Like, the owls were presenting themselves within the framework of this very weird stuff. Now, I very early on, when I started writing about owls and UFOs, I put the word out. Like, it's right there on the top of my blog. It just says, if you've got an owl story, a weird owl story, I want to hear it. So people are reaching out to me, and if anyone anywhere in the world has an experience with a UFO and an owl, They like where the world's all connected now. Everyone has got a computer. Everyone's got a phone. You just type in on a search engine. You type in UFO owl. I am the very first thing that comes up, and I'm asking to hear these stories. So I am just flooded with amazing stories, just amazing stories, and I'm doing my best to archive them. And sometimes people say, oh, you're going to write another book about owls. And I'm saying, I don't think I should, because it would essentially be the same stories repeating over and over and over again. And that would be a little unfair to the reader. But wow, I've collected some amazing, powerful stories. I'll give you a little sample of one. So this is nothing to do with UFOs, but everything to do with this kind of odd archetype thing. And I want to be cautious how I share this story, because the young man hasn't really, he's given me permission to tell it, but I just want to be cautious not to give away too much. But
sure.
So as a boy, he was living on an Indian reservation. He was Native American, and he was flying a kite. This is up in, I think it was Minnesota, and he was flying a kite, and he had a fancy kite. He was like a 12-year-old boy, and he had this really fancy kite, that had like really good, they were the competition type kites. And for some reason, it never happened to him before. The big gust of wind came along, and it grabbed the whole string out of his hand, and just everything just got launched out of his hand, and the kite flew off into the woods. And so he went into the woods to look for it. The next day, he went into the woods with a friend. He said, and they went in, they walked in the woods, and up in a tree, there's the kite. Now, at the base of the tree was an owl, all wrapped up in the string. So here's a boy, loses his kite in the woods. He finds the kite. The string has entangled this owl. They got some adults to come in the woods, and they cut the owl free with a pair of scissors. But so they rescue and save this owl's life. Now, my very first question, this was like an intuitive flash. I said, "Are you a shaman?" Like, he's an adult now. Like, "Are you a shaman?" Yeah. And he said, "Yes." He said, he kind of danced around it a little bit, and he said, "Well, essentially, yes, I am." And so there's this connection between owls and shamanism. Like, he's a Native American. It's a tradition for his people from the beginning of time. Mm. And he's part of that lineage, and he had so one of the things that shows up, I gave you an example of a UFO story just a moment ago, but what also shows up is people have these experiences that are somehow connected to shamanism, is specifically a shamanic initiation. At the beginning of becoming a shaman, people have owl experiences, and this is recognized within the cultures that are still have a shamanic tradition.
Well, what do they say? I mean, do they give you their reasons why they think that is?
It's the totem of the shaman. Yeah.
The owl is just the totem of the shaman.
Symbolic of the shaman. Yeah. So that what the shaman does, right? So a shaman, if you're in the tribe and you need someone for spiritual answers, so that you would go to the shaman and say, I need help with this deep answer. I'm struggling with this question. I need help. The shaman would then journey, right? That they would go on a shamanic journey, and some of them will take psychedelic drugs. They'll eat mushrooms in the jungles of Brazil. They'll eat ayahuasca or drink ayahuasca. They'll, in Siberia, they'll eat the animascaria mushroom, the one with the red mushroom with the white dots. So they'll go on a psychedelic trip to get this answer for the tribe member. And they can do it other ways. They can do it through fasting or rhythmic dancing all night, or dancing for a few days. You can go into get into a trance. Even just beating a drum for a long time will put you into a trance state. Right. But so it's referred to in most cultures as a journey. You go on a shamanic journey, and they are leaving this reality, going to another reality through the aid of drugs or some other plant medicine. Uh-huh. And then they have to return with an answer. Now that's the lore of the owl. The owl can fly into the darkness. The owl is a messenger that can see in the dark. And any ancient man would have marveled and understood that the owl can fly at night. It would have seemed magic to them. We understand a little more about light sensitive cones and rods in the owl's eyes that would allow for it to fly it in almost what would seem to us be complete darkness. Now, the owl in the mythologies, traveling in the dark is traveling to another realm. And and then the owl would then have to come back. So it would go to the land of the dead, to the land of the ancestors, to that other realm, and then return with a message.
Gotcha.
And I punctuate this by saying that presently, modern day, we have modern folklore, we have modern mythology in the form of the most popular series of books in the history of publication is the Harry Potter books. And in that book, Harry Potter has an owl that delivers the mail. Now that is perfect. That is an ancient archetype, exactly transposed into our modern world, right? So instead of it's delivering the mail, it is a messenger. It's perfect.
Man, you know something? The more you talk about this, the more it makes sense. Like even the person that told me that they saw the owl in their dream, because we were talking about angels, right? And so this person said, well, you know, like I had a dream that I saw two owls and then like this really angelic being looking through the window at me, you know. And I wonder if you know how like the symbols rule our subconscious, right? So I wonder if the owl, regardless if it's physical in this realm or in a dream or whatever, like I wonder if it is the perfect symbol or the perfect transporter of something, like you're saying, from one realm to the next. Like that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, what is it? Is it really just the owl and here's the symbol, or is it actually a true vessel that these things can come from one realm to the next through these owls kind of thing, you know? I get kind of, you know,
I struggle with it too, because we're dancing around like this mystical truth that can only be understood like at an intellectual level. You know, we can find references in, you know, old myths and find references in dusty books, but on a soul level, like we got to tap into it at our heart level, right? So we got to ignore our logical mind and really allow ourselves to, or I really have to allow myself to wrestle with these elusive ideas at more of a heart level or a soul level. Like, yeah, because I'll get stuck. It's just exactly what you're talking about. It happens to me all the time where I just fumble and like I'm trying to make sense of this intellectually, and it's not an intellectual.
It's like the left brain can't do it by itself, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. We got to let go somehow. We can't cling to the intellectual. We got to loosen up. And so it's basically a magic, symbolic entity. And there's lots of things that are, you know, like I just said, Luke Skywalker is a symbol of a hero. And then, you know, there's other birds, especially birds that have a lot of mythology associated with them. Eagles, for instance, you know, an owl is a symbol of the night and the eagle is a symbol of the day. So, and so there's plenty of symbolic totem animals out there. Few have the power of the owl, and anyone who studies like animal symbology will say that.
Is there a particular type of owl though? I wonder, or is it in your, because everybody that has an owl experience, I would assume would be for the most part contacting you if they're familiar with the people in this field. Is there a particular type of owl specifically that people see, or is it all different kinds of breeds?
Well, it's all different kinds, including people have like stories of owl T-shirts and stuff like that. You know, like I saw, you know, just as I was having this conversation, someone sat down across from me with an owl T-shirt on. You know, that kind of thing. I yeah. take that seriously too. You know, that's an owl sighting. I mean, I have to, if it's important to the experiencer, you know, to the observer, then it holds weight for them. I have to trust that. You know, if they're telling me a story, they say this was a very powerful experience. So oftentimes, people are seeing owls at night, so you tend not to see the big ones, right? So a lot of owls. There's a lot of very small owls. Like there's a lot of really tiny ones that people just simply never see. They live deep in the forest and they're eating bugs for the most part, and little mice and such. So but you know, there's tiny owls, and people have stories of seeing tiny owls too. But you know, some traditions would say that the white owl holds a spiritual meaning, and then the brown owls hold a more, or brown or gray owl would hold a more pragmatic, like real life issue, right? So
yeah, that's like the one that we're all used to kind of seeing, because there's so many different breeds of owls, I think, right? Like there's quite a few. But the one
there's a lot. Yeah,
the one that we have in Arkansas is like the atypical. I mean, we have like two, like a barn owl, and I think there's a different one, but we've got the one this classic that you hear in movies. It's just like
it's a great horned owl.
Hoot owl,
so
yeah.
The great horned owl has a great booming call, and the loudest owl is the barred owl, which we have around the house here, and that's not unusual. There's lots of owls. I live in the forest up here in the Adirondacks, and the barred owl, come springtime, in the next few months, they stake out their terrain for the summer, and they are so noisy in the woods, and they are loud, like crazy loud. Like it sounds like chimpanzees, like in a jungle movie.
Yeah, I bet that still sounds cool. Just thinking about that kind of sounds cool to me. If you had it like nowadays, because since it's been like a year since I talked to you, are you still getting these reports? Like they're not, they don't stop?
Yeah, every day, one a day. Well, I get most days of the week, I get a good one. So by the end of the year, I'm getting 300 a year, I bet.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, there's lots of them that just are kind of dismissive, where people say, oh, I had a great owl sighting, and they tell me this wonderful story about seeing an owl. It has no spiritual significance or UFO significance, but then there's some powerful ones. That one I just told you about, the boy in the string.
Yeah.
Just like if I had written that in a screenplay, right? So like or in a novel, my editor would have every right to sort of like say, yeah, you're playing it's a little corny, this one. This little sequence.
Right, yeah.
Got to tone it down a little. Don't be so obvious.
Yeah, I got you. Look, we got to take our first break. We're here with Mike Clelland. You guys go check out the website for reference while you're listening, MikeClelland.com. Also, his blog at hiddenexperience.blogspot.com. You can put your questions in chat or call in. We'll be right back.
People are jumping on board to the Life Change Tea Regiment. Brew, steep, and drink for a gentle, taste great cleanse. It's changing how they feel. See what everybody's talking about. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Life Change Tea aids in digestive slowdown and helps people get moving down a healthy path. We won't make claims. We'll just let you decide. Experience is much better than a commercial anyway. If you want results, log on to getthetea.com and purchase your super strength cleansing tea. You won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for some mind-body suggestions, go to YouTube and punch in the search bar Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. Put power into your health now. So, getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com for super strength tea. And YouTube, Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now for valuable suggestions. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Hey, this check is wrong. I worked a holiday and 7 hours of overtime. Not getting paid correctly is a real pain. It could also hurt our boss if our company provides out-of-compliance checks. That's right. Construction companies doing business with the government can get fined, or officials of the companies can go to jail if the checks aren't right. It's a law. The Davis-Bacon Act has 30 compliance issues for every check, but there is an easy way for construction companies to be in compliance. EMARS offers Compliant Client, a web-based system that finds and corrects all 30 of the possible out-of-compliance check issues. Users of Compliant Client report an 80% savings in time and money. Running a weekly payroll usually takes about 5 minutes. All 15,000 plus clients of EMARS have never had a legal compliance issue. Plus, they sleep better on check day. Contact EMARS at emarsinc.com or call 480-595-0466.
Right, me old Chiners. I know it's an ad break, but before you lot shoot off and make yourself a cup of Rosie Lee or whatever else it is you're going to sling down your Gregory Peck, you need to listen to me babble. If, like me, you found your way to lighten the void via a downloadable podcast, you might want to take a butcher's at the Fringe FM Wind and Kite. You won't Adam and Eve how many other shows there are or what they rabbit on about. Ancient history, conspiracy, the consciousness, the esoteric, the occult, metaphysics, parapolitical, ufology, technology and spirituality, to name but a few. They got featured hosts like Ryan Gable, Jeremy Scott, Alex Exum, Tim Doyle, Cortana and Gigi, Susanna Ross, the Reverend John Polk, Michael Deacon and J.D. Lewis. You might find yourself listening to the thoughts and theories of the author of the fish you just finished reading. Or you could pick up the dog and bone, call in and tell everyone your own beliefs or experiences. So do me a favour, before you put on the Ansel or crack open a bottle of vino or roll a joint, go to the Fringe FM and see what you're missing.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you're interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
Howdy, this is Catalina, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
To Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. If you would like to text, you can text in at 501-777-5631.
Mike Clelland is our guest tonight, and I'm pretty sure, like, you guys know, if you're familiar with alien abductions, The Owl Story, The Messengers, his book. I have the book on audiobook, which is fantastic. I highly suggest you read this book, and if you want to go to the website, again, for reference tonight, is MikeClelland.com, hiddenexperience.blogspot.com, and I think this was your third time on the broadcast here, I'm pretty sure, and we've talked a lot about owls, but I don't know, Mike, if I've ever asked you, like, are there other things, other animals that people report to you, other than owls that seem to be big sometimes?
Sure. Deer, for sure. Deer show up a lot. This is in the screen memory aspect of the abduction lore. Deer show up a lot. Fox actually shows up a lot. And then as far as like other kind of bird totems, birds are, hawks certainly show up, hawks and eagles, and ravens and crows. Ravens and crows are similar birds, the same way that hawks and eagles are similar. So they kind of have the same totem power. So here I'll tell you, this is my partner, Andrea. I'll tell you a story that she had. She was driving she was coming home from a friend's house at night in a lonely road. We're a very rural, wooded area here, and there's homes along this route and stuff. So she comes around the corner, and there's this great big giant mothership like hovering above the road. And her son at the time, he's a teenager now, he was in the baby chair, he was still in the car seat. So she freaks out and she runs out of the car and she pounds on the door of this house, and the house is up on a hill so she can watch this. So it's late at night and she's pounding on the door in this house and like basically wanting someone to see this, and she watches this thing drift away. And as the people come out, they just barely get a view of it. So in a way, it's good because she has a witness. These people, it's gotten back to her. She knows these people now. And so it's like a multiple witness case. So that's good. But so she goes back to her car. She's totally freaked out. And she gets to there's a T intersection. And at this T intersection is a stop sign. And sitting at this is right after the sighting, and sitting at the base of the stop sign is a fox. Now, that's the most interesting part of this whole story to me. She sees this big, giant, triangular mothership thing. That shows up in a lot of reports. But the fox at the intersection, at a stop sign, at a signpost, like sitting right next to the signpost, a fox. Now, a fox is a trickster. A fox is and the trickster, coyotes, fox, those basically have the same totem power. Now, so that takes this, what seems sort of a textbook MUFON report of someone seeing a large craft in the nighttime sky, just at treetop level, and it turns it into something much, much more interesting. For me, when it's got this. I mean, I've seen fox occasionally. You see them kind of darting across the road. I've never seen a fox basically posing next to a stop sign.
No, they never stop. It doesn't seem like, right? They're always on the move. Yeah, they're always
kind of skittering around and stuff. Sure, yeah. Darting away usually.
You ever hear them scream though? Like a fox?
I have. So at the house here, as I said, we live in a rural area. We've got a lot of wildlife and deer and owls and stuff like that. And there are normal deer, there's normal owls. I don't get too worked up about that but when we were, and I had seen a fox at this one corner of the driveway a couple times. And we were at the house. It was a summer evening, so everyone had the screens open and stuff like that. And I heard this noise. It sounded like, the only way I can describe it, it sounded like a pterodactyl, like dying. It was the most horrendous, gruesome, it sounded like some monster was murdering another monster. And all of us ran out of the house at the same point from all the different doors in the house. Like, what was that? And it was dusk. And I kind of walked down the driveway and I saw a fox dart away. So I'm certain that's what it was.
Yeah. So they sound like, the first time I heard it, man, it was like shrieking, like what? Like it sounded like a woman screaming. I'm like, what is that? And everybody's always
being murdered.
You're right.
Yeah, in the worst possible way. Yeah, it's a horrible noise. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people are saying, that's a Black Panther. Something. I'm like, no, it's not a panther. And I had to get online and go on YouTube and listen to animal screams to figure out what it was the first time I heard it. And I was like, are you kidding me? That comes out of a fox?
Those little things like the size of a cat. I mean, the fox that we had in the yard it wasn't very impressive. It was a little teeny thing. It looked like about the size of a big cat. But wow, what a noise. Yeah. I don't know whether it's territorial or what they're doing, but it's a freaky noise.
Yeah. So it's like every time, I can tell you this though, every time I've seen a fox, I do get that feeling, like that intuitive feeling, like I need to pay attention to this for some reason. Because I've been learning to I don't want to get too woo-woo sometimes, man. I don't want to think everything is a sign or, an omen. But, man, it sure does seem like the more that I'm noticing to pay attention to this, that I have more of these occurrences. So things like foxes, owls, even eagles or hawks, stuff like that. I get this intuitive feeling, Mike, that they're there for a reason. And like when we see them, they're there to tell us something or we should pay attention kind of thing. I don't know why. I just don't say, oh, it's just random chance. Maybe I'm overreaching. I don't know.
Well, you can at times, sure, we can all overreach, but at the same time, so the question I would ask and this is the same question that a shaman might ask, what were you talking about in the moments leading up to that? What happened afterwards? What did your life change? What was going on in your life? Were you at a point of stress? Were you at a point of decision making? So, for instance, hummingbirds show up they're a really buoyant, happy totem, right? So hummingbirds show up at parties and people are happy and laughing. This hummingbirds show up, and that's not the totem of the owl. So I would just pay attention and keep a little journal of it, and I certainly do, and of these stories, and I'm collecting these stories and stuff like that. So I've got a lot of stories where people kind of do that, they're like, I felt it was important, like I really felt it was important. That's normal to hear. And I think that's just part of being human. I think there's every like we're pre-installed, from birth. Well, like you say, I guess we're pre-installed to have this mystical connection to these animals. Our parents, our schools, our like society has basically said, no, that's ignore that mystical stuff. It's just a fox. But I'm on the other side of the line at this point. I'm seeing a lot. I'm seeing a lot of things as magical, and I'm certain I'm overreaching at times. I'm certain I am. But I guess I'm happy to live my life like this. Overreaching a little bit.
Well, I'm convinced that from a mystical level, at the very least, that when you read mystical texts and stuff, they talk about the logos and symbols and stuff. And we understand symbols like from a human point of view. We can draw them on paper, we see them on street signs or whatever. But I am convinced that there is something out there that uses physical life, like this physical realm. And we think that it's just a coincidence, but it's not. It's like, it's a symbol. It's symbols. It's something trying to speak to us, something higher, on a bigger macro level that uses life experiences, uses animals, events, things like ladybugs. I mean, think about it, man. Like, why do these things exist at all? Why? Right? Like,
we live in it. Yeah. This is just symbolic. Yes, symbolic. There's a researcher named Christopher Knowles, and he says a picture is worth 1,000 words. And a symbol is worth 1,000 pictures. So if you're confronted with a symbol, at just the right moment, that says something.
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, you know what? We're actually going to have Christopher Knowles here on the 17th. So I can't wait to speak to him.
Yeah. Have you ever spoken with him?
No, it'll be the first time he's ever been on the show.
Oh, right. He's great. He just published a book and he sent a copy to me, and I've only dug into it just a little bit, and it's a fiction book. So.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. Yeah, so, but really, like, things like the ladybug, I mean, we got some weird-looking animals, don't we? We've got some things that, if there's a creator, if there's a god or whatever, you wonder sometimes when you look at some of these creatures, and they're all beautiful, except for things like, ticks and chiggers and stuff. I don't think of that. I don't know. Like, I don't think those things mean anything, but maybe they do. But when you see things like ladybugs or bees or butterflies,
or bumblebees. Oh yeah, we had butterflies along the house all fall. These monarch butterflies. For some reason, the south side of our house was just covered with these little teeny chrysalises, and it was getting cold, and some of them like won't make it. They come out and so we had all these butterflies like sitting around our porch, and with Andrea and I, and one butterfly, the wings came out wrinkly and it couldn't fly. So it would just be out on the porch with us day after day after day. It was, and it would come and sit with us. And it was like a puppy. I kid you not. We would sit at the table and eat breakfast, and this butterfly that couldn't fly would come and like want to basically sit on your hand. It was
like a pet butterfly, huh?
It was like cool. A little pet, puppy butterfly. Yeah, exactly. And that's an animal of metamorphosis, right? It starts out as this ugly blobular slug, right? It's a caterpillar, and then it completely goes into its chrysalis. And there's a point when you open up a chrysalis, if you're like a biologist, there's nothing in there. It's like pudding. There's this blob of mush. There's no caterpillar. There's no butterfly. And so it goes from, and it doesn't spin a web. It's not like it makes a cocoon. The chrysalis of the monarch butterfly is the body of the caterpillar. The caterpillar just hangs upside down, and its whole body like turns into this hard plastic filled with goop. And then 12, 14 days later, a beautiful monarch butterfly breaks out of that little fragile chrysalis. Yeah. And that's a symbol of metamorphosis. It's not even death and rebirth. It's like you start out as one thing, you change completely, and you become something else.
Yeah, it is a perfect symbol. I mean, really, come on. And then you got the ladybug to me is always a symbol of good luck. And you know what's weird is I even had a tarot reading one time where I had a ladybug that just landed. It was a midwinter, and a ladybug landed on the top of my effects rack here, the rack that's got the processing and all that stuff in it. And I'm thinking, it's wintertime. Why is there a ladybug here? And, that same day, I had a tarot reader say, things are changing. You're going through a big change. Good things are coming towards you. You're probably even seeing ladybugs. And I'm like, what? Come on now. Really? Like, why would people say that?
Well, this is if it would be well understood if we were in a primitive village. Primitive is the wrong word. Let's say if we were at a traditional village, out in the jungle of Peru or in the tundra of Siberia and stuff like that. This is all completely understood. The reality is magical at all times. So we don't live in that world anymore. You and I don't live in that world, but we still have these little magical events, and either we pay attention to them or we don't. And I'm paying attention, and I'm collecting stories of people who are struggling with these things, and I'm still struggling with that. I don't have a good answer to a lot of these things, but I certainly recognize the power, the symbolic power of these events, whether it's an owl or a ladybug or a hummingbird or dimes. Dimes are actually, people have weird experiences with dimes.
You're talking about the coins, right? Like dimes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll drop out they'll often when people die, it's just people have stories of dimes.
Right.
It's very common.
There is a theory. I don't know if I buy it or not. And it's funny because somebody just dropped a picture of a praying mantis in the chat room here. And I'm thinking, yeah, so I heard this theory once that there are actually beings, like alien beings, and I know you've heard this too, where a lot of people talk about these different races of beings and stuff, where the animals and stuff that we see are kind of like microcosmic representations of these beings from other realms, and I'm thinking maybe like the praying mantis thing I can get. I'm sure you've heard of that too, where people see like
many times.
Praying mantis aliens.
Praying mantis on a ship, yeah.
And you think, well, that sounds a little out there, but I mean, of course it sounds out there when you grew up in a world where you're the dominant species, right? Like you wouldn't even expect it. But if you ever watch a praying mantis, it will fight you. It's not afraid of anything, a vicious little creatures, right? But the encounters that people talk about with them aren't always bad, Is there a specific?
A lot of them are very loving, yeah. They have people say just the exact opposite. Like see this ugly giant insect, 8 foot tall. They should be freaked out, and they just are in awe of the radiating love.
I'm curious though. What is your belief though on? I know you don't know, right? But instinctually, maybe intuitively, what do you think the universe? Do you think the universe is teeming with life like that? Really?
Oh, yes, I do. And so, teeming, the universe is big, so there's the way I think about this is like this. So, in the last 100 years, we've invented more and more powerful telescopes. And we just, every time we think we've figured out how big the universe is, we get a better telescope and we're like, oh no, it's a lot bigger than we thought. And then we're inventing more and more powerful microscopes and more theoretical stuff about the structure of the atom. And so, we had theories of the atom 100 years ago, and it just sort of ended at a certain point. And now, the small of the small, there's even smaller. You zoom in there, it gets even smaller. There's smaller particles. So in the macro, right, the universe is huge. In the micro, the tiny stuff is infinite. So it's infinite in both directions. Right? It's infinite in big and it's infinite in small, as far as we can tell. And then I would also say it goes infinite in the possibilities of consciousness. Right? So you think, that we have a limited consciousness. We can only do so much with this, and then they're like, we're finding more and more the power of our own consciousness. At the same time, we're finding more and more about, the ideas of reality itself, we have this set idea about what reality is. And then, some quantum physicist comes up with a model and proves that, it's a high probability that we live in a universe that is multi-layered with multiple dimensions. So, every way we look, if we really examine something, it turns into something infinite.
That is so true, man. I think that's where the Hermeticists got their theories from, actually, because they talk about as above, so below. They see everything on the kind of like this finite level, and then they just kind of study nature, people's experiences, the universe, and you can just kind of see that it does get bigger on an infinite level. And I really believe in this like living symbolism thing. I don't want to get biblical here, but you have heard that thing, like, the word is alive. In the beginning, there was God, and the God was the word.
Sure.
And the word.
Yeah.
To me, that's just like a symbol saying, well, you know how you think symbols in your mind. Well, whatever created this thing, when it thinks of things like that, like symbols and messages and stuff like that, it actually creates them, And then there's the whole idea, like, well, are we living in the dream of the creator? Because if you think about that, I know it's deep and woo-woo stuff, but it starts to make a lot of sense, especially from like, I guess, a Carl Jung aspect, if you want to look at it that way.
Oh yeah. I mean, I just think of like, just like in the 60s, the Vietnam War was divided between the hawks and the doves, right? The hawks were the warriors and the doves were the peaceniks. And that's straight up symbolism. Boom, as plain as it can be. I mean, the dove shows up in that was the symbol of Jesus being baptized.
Yeah, the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, and peace. Then the hawk and the eagle, or the hawk or eagle, is the symbol of like Rome, right? And it's also the symbol of America now. And so it's the symbol of Zeus and Jupiter and the male Greek gods and the Roman gods, or the Roman king of gods, the top honcho of gods. So it's so we're in this stuff we're imbued with this. There's and some of the traditions change. Some owl mythologies are very dark. The Native Americans, especially the Plains Indians of the out west, see the owl as a very dark omen. Boy, that like you don't.
They do, huh?
Yeah, you don't want to. That. In fact, I talked to a Navajo man. He didn't know who I was, and he was at the conference. It was at the conference. We were right in the room with this guy, and him and his wife had a booth, and they were selling little turquoise beads and things.
I know.
Like that.
Were you talking about the conference that I was at with you?
Yeah,
I know who you're talking about. I think.
Yeah, him and his wife. And I had it. He said, "You're the owl guy," and he said, in our language, that we call the owl the messenger.
Wow.
And I was like, well, I walked over and got my book, and I said, "Here's my book," and that's the title of the book. And I didn't know that. And he said, the owl is a very sinister omen in his traditions.
That's so weird, because it doesn't seem that way in the other things. Like it is, it just doesn't. I don't know why.
Yeah. So, I mean, owls are bad medicine in Native American lore. It's most Native, not all of it. There's some where it's seen as a, so if you take a couple steps back, oftentimes if you hear an owl hooting, someone's going to die. That's the tradition in a lot of, that's even in Ireland and stuff like that. They have traditions like that.
Oh boy. I don't
really. Pardon?
I said I heard one hoot the other day. I hope that's not true.
They hoot all the time. We'd all be dropping dead if we really took that literally. So,
yeah.
But I have many stories where after a parent, usually it's a parent, dies, a parent or a grandparent. I have one guy walked out of the hospital. His grandfather died. He was in the hospital, and he walked out of the hospital, and there was an owl in the grass next to the sidewalk, right at the door to the hospital. And he stopped and he said, "Grandpa, like, it's so good to like that you're here I can talk to you right now."
Yeah.
And he just instinctively talked to this owl like it was his grandfather. I have that story over and over and over again. That story shows up a lot.
Oh, man.
I could go on and on.
I want to tell you about this story that happened to me, but I know we're getting towards the top of the hour, but I had the almost exact same story with my grandmother. I think I might have told you this before, but I kind of want to tell you again to see if you remember it. I know we're getting at the top of the hour, but it had to do with crows, right? So do people talk to you about those, like ravens or crows too?
All the time.
That's a big one too, right? It really, Yeah, I think that's a big one too. Look, so yeah, we're at the top of the hour. If you want to, I really want you guys to go check out the blog, because this is one of the best blogs on the planet for this field too. And that's at hiddenexperience.blogspot.com. We'll be talking about that too and more when we come up after this break with Mike Clelland.
This is Barbara Charlton from Metaphorical Archaeology. If you've ever had a traumatic paranormal experience, the effects of it may stay with you for years. Who do you talk to? You can't go to conventional help. What we do is we use emotional freedom techniques or tapping to actually neutralize the effects of that event. Maybe when you tell the story now, your heart races and your palms get sweaty. You don't even want to think about it because you don't know how to neutralize that. That's what EFT tapping does. It neutralizes those emotions. The circuit that was recorded on is gone. The energy flows freely and you're free of it. And that's what emotional freedom is all about. We offer this as a pro bono service, but this is something that I offer because no one, it seems, is helping people with these experiences. If you'd like to reach me, it's really easy. My cell phone is 214-995-3754. Please leave a message. I will get back to you as quickly as possible. Or you can email me, barb.eft@gmail.com. And EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. Reach out to me. It's confidential. This works. You won't believe the results.
Ew, yuck. They're unhealthy and gross. Bugs, I hate bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. From contact, it kills bugs. Plus, Orange Guard kills hidden bugs and keeps new bugs away for weeks. I know. I use Orange Guard. Plus, all of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally regarded as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It promotes a healthier planet, and here's a bonus. Orange Guard cleans where it's sprayed. Plus, it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard.
You can get Orange Guard at Ace Hardware. And listen, folks, Orange Guard is tougher than bugs, and it's safe to use. Go to orangeguard.com. That's orangeguard.com.
Hi, this is Kronox from Belgium, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
I'm Ryan Gable, and I want to remind you to keep your radio, phone, tablet, or computer tuned to the Fringe FM and visit the website thefringe.fm to listen to the entire lineup of shows. You can also catch my broadcast, The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, beginning at 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific Time, right here on the Fringe FM.
All right, everyone, this is Justin from the UK. Excuse the chitty. If you're into the Fringe and you want to hear the brass tacks, me old China plate, Joe Roop and his guests on Lighting the Void will open your mince pies. You need to shut your north and south and use your 10-speed gears and listen to them bubble. You could hear a Barry Crocker, no Brussels, but he ain't no holy friar. Anyway, you be the Barnaby Rudge and take a butcher's.
We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling, the ground shook, you could hear rushing water, and then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails, stores with their shelves strip bare, ATMs can't operate, deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand three truths. FEMA is broke, the system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25-year shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in one business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts.
This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie. In December of 2019 and January of 2020, unidentified drones were sighted in northeastern Colorado and southwestern Nevada. The media and experts speculated who could be flying the drone. And while the mystery of who was operating the drones remains unsolved, a series of internal emails were recently revealed through the Freedom of Information Act obtained by a researcher operating in affiliation with the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. Though the emails are heavily redacted, they do show that reports were taken by the 90th Security Forces Group and the Public Affairs Office at Warren Air Force Base. In one of the emails from a redacted source, it states that it was being investigated by multiple federal agencies. The emails reveal that many at FE Warren were just as confused by the drones as the public was. And now the emails talk about the drones picking up and dropping things that look like potatoes. Another email says these are 1,000,000,000%, not ours. Reports of sightings of the mysterious drones have dropped according to local law enforcement. A historian makes a discovery about the Great Pyramids in ancient papyrus. The Diary of Mir details the transportation of limestone from Tura to Giza during the 4th dynasty. It explains how Pharaoh Khufu's Great Pyramid of Giza was built. They based this on a hieroglyph that translates to Asmet Khufu, thought to mean the horizon of Khufu, and associated with the images of the pyramids. Historian Matthew Simpson, who runs the YouTube channel Ancient Architects, believes this hieroglyph was actually a reference to an entire city which took 2 decades to complete. Simpson believes that Asmet Khufu encompasses a larger area than the Giza Plateau that we see today, and more is waiting to be discovered below modern Egyptian villages. An unidentified creature was spotted roaming near the scene of a deer mass by Aaron Fitch. He stated he saw something darker than night running across the A18 in Lincolnshire. Finch, who is the co-host of podcast Realm of the Supernatural, is now investigating the phenomenon. His co-host Lee Solway has now made an appeal to locate the strange creature, asking anyone who's seen something like a big cat to get in touch. The pair are not ruling out the shadowy creature as a kind of Bigfoot. According to the podcasters, another couple had sighted a similar-looking creature, and the couple reported it was so big it blocked out the taillight of the car in front of them. He said you also get Bigfoot sightings that run up and down the A15. This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie.
Joe, pick up the phone, dial 1-800-588-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada. You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Mike Clelland is our guest tonight, author of The Messengers, also Stories from the Messengers and Hidden Experience. You can go check out the blog at hiddenexperience.blogspot.com. And before the break, we were kind of discussing living symbolism, especially owls, but we got into other things that have to do with symbolism. But just if you're tuning in now, just to understand that this kind of whole thing wraps around how owls are always there during, not always, but they show up a lot during abductions and missing time experiences and things of that nature. And it's something that Mike has been investigating for such a long time. Matter of fact, how long do you think you've been researching and investigating this, Mike?
2006. So it's 14 years.
14 years, yeah. And still.
Just the owl thing. I mean, I was reading about the stuff before then, but I was actively started investigating in 2006.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're getting any closer to the answers, or do you got more questions?
I feel like I'm seeing the same patterns over and over again. And I feel like I still got a lot of questions, and I think I'm a little more at peace. Here's what's happened is I'm at peace now with not having the answer. Like there was a needy part, like I got to solve this. I figured I'd study it for a month and I'd solve it all. Well, that didn't happen, but I'm much more at peace with not having an answer. What I do have is a good working model of a way to frame it. I would say that the myth makers of our ancient times are still actively at play. I don't know whether the myth maker is a alien on a flying saucer, or is it's an ethereal entity, or it's our cosmic consciousness or something like that. But I feel like the same stories that we've been talking about, the same stories have been with us all throughout human history. And there's some force that allows these things to repeat. That's the mystery. I don't know what that force is, but I know these stories are repeating.
Yeah.
And have been and that's the source of our myths. So that's what I'm calling them in a way, is our myth makers.
Well, yeah, right. And before myth, yeah, that's a good way that is actually a good phrase for it. Our myth makers. Yeah. That's like Joseph Campbell stuff too. Exactly.
I got totally wiggy on Joseph Campbell for a long time. I read a bunch of stuff, and I had every conceivable audiobook imaginable, and I would listen to him nonstop. So yeah, he really defined the way I frame this stuff in my own head.
Now, before the break, you were talking about how dimes and owls, not owls, but what was it? Dimes, something that happened before people passed away. And you talked about that story about how the kid knew it was his grandpa. And it just rang to me like that time that my grandmother died. My grandmother Roop died, and she had cancer, and we were all at the hospital, surrounding the bed, like it was time to kind of pull the plug thing. She didn't make it to her last chemo, and you know how that goes, right? They're just barely keeping her alive, and everybody's saying their goodbyes. And I'm looking at the family, and they're like, right before they're about to do it, like, I can't take it. I just can't take it. So I run out of there, and I jump in my truck, and we're on the top level of this parking deck that's outside next to the hospital. I mean, right next to the helicopter ramp and everything. And I get in my GMC Sonoma, and I start driving down that ramp, and it kind of spirals down on the outside, and my truck just dies like this. I mean, as I'm rolling, and I have to stop, and I'm like, what's going on? And I'm trying to turn the key, and I look up, and this raven, a good-sized raven, just flew down and landed on top of the truck, like on the hood. And I'm looking at it in my windshield, and we're having this kind of staring match for a minute. And all of a sudden, I got this deep, feeling, like I couldn't even swallow kind of thing. And I was thinking, goodbye, Grandma. She's like telling me like it's okay. I just wanted to make sure you were okay before I leave, kind of thing. And then as soon as I kind of acknowledged it, it flew off, and then my truck started again. There was nothing wrong with that truck, man.
Did it start on itself, or did you have to turn the key?
Like, I was turning the key the whole time, and it wouldn't start when the bird was on the truck, and then when the bird flew off, and I'm pretty sure I had to start it. I'm pretty sure I turned it again and it started, So to me, that is definitely one of those experiences. Some people may say, well, it was all a big coincidence. No, I don't think so. There's no way.
I think the majority of people would hear that story and recognize the magic in it. I think people are yearning to be allowed to say, like, oh, that story touches me. People need that. I think it's a part of our human soul. Like, we need that. And then some people don't. And I think those people are far outnumbered by the people who recognize the spark of magic that's around us all the time. So that story you just told is a beautiful story. And I have collected in so many forms, including my own experiences, very similar accounts.
You had one like that too?
So my mother was in hospice care, and I had visited her in North Carolina. She was my sister lives in North Carolina, so my mother was very close to my sister's house, and she was failing from Alzheimer's. It was horrendously sad to see her in that frightened state.
Alzheimer's is tough.
Yeah, it was brutal. It was brutal. And I had just been there a month or two before, and I was at home. I was living in Idaho at the time, in this high elevation up in the sagebrush, dry countryside. So there's not a lot of bugs at night. So at night, no one has air conditioning. It's high elevation. It doesn't get that hot in the summer. So when that's hot in the day and your house gets hot. So what everyone does at night is they just open up all the doors as soon as the sun goes down. And I mean, like, you open them up. You just open them up. You don't worry about the screen or anything like that. You just prop them open. So the house was airing out and it was cooling off, and the nice cool air from the night was coming in. And I'm at my computer sitting there, and I look over, and there I hear this noise in the kitchen. And from where my desk was, I could look into the kitchen, and the fluorescent light is on in the kitchen. So it's bright linoleum, white floor and stuff like that. And I look over, and there's a ferret in my kitchen.
A ferret?
Like a big, beautiful ferret. So I was like, the first thing I thought was like, oh my God, if this thing gets in the house, like, I'm never getting it out. How do you? So I like walked into the kitchen, and this thing was as calm as it could be. And it just sat there and it looked up at me. And I said to it, you can't be here. You need to leave.
Really?
And the ferret hopped out on the porch. And then, so I was looking at this thing, and it was like 3 feet away from my feet. And then when it was on the porch, I walked right to the door. It was like sitting at the door. And this is where we had the real stare down. This thing was adorable. Like, it's a member of the mink family, right? So the fur its coat is just glistening, and it's just amazingly lively animal. And it has this bounding kind of motion that's just really electric and beautiful. And then it trotted off into the bushes, and I never saw it. And so then I went and I time-stamped it because I made a Facebook post on it, which is still up somewhere in my Facebook history. And I found a picture of a ferret that looks exactly like it, and I put it on there, and I said, hey, this funny thing just happened. I even wrote, I said, you can't be here. You need to leave. And then the next morning I got up surprisingly early, and I checked my email, and when I got up, and my brother contacted me, he said, Mike, call me right away. It's about Mom. And my mom had an aneurysm that night, and she was unconscious when they tried to wake her in the morning. And it was basically, get on the plane now.
Yeah.
So I did the little thing. I called up the air, and I had the plea. I think it was basically, this is a family medical emergency. And so later that same afternoon, I was on a plane to North Carolina. Now, I was sitting with my mom. My sister was on the other side, and it was it was 3 a.m. And my mom, I held her hand as she took her last breath. It was a powerful, beautiful, important experience for me. And she had suffered. Now, that night, so 9:30 in Idaho would have been about 11:30 p.m. in North Carolina. So, like, I walked up to this ferret. I've talked to a lot of people that say, have you ever seen a ferret in your house? Like I've nobody. And I said to this thing very politely, like, happy, like, you can't be here. You need to leave. And that was, as far as I can tell, that was potentially when my mom had her aneurysm that she never recovered from. It was probably 2.5 days later she passed.
Did you feel bad because you said, I'm thinking about it?
Nope.
Like,
nope.
Yeah, I hear you.
No, it was a really joyous thing. It was a really joyous thing in the sense that this animal was it exuded life.
Yeah.
This little sweet animal. Yeah.
That's not a common thing, right? I mean, a ferret, that's not common.
Well, there's wild ferrets, certainly, but it's certainly not common to have one in your kitchen.
Yeah,
I asked everyone. I called the veterinarians. Did someone lose a ferret? Did someone have a pet ferret? And I actually looked it up, and it was was a black-footed ferret. That's exactly what it looked like. And a black-footed ferret was considered extinct until the mid-1980s. And there was a very small population in Colorado, in Wyoming, right on the Colorado-Wyoming border, that the black-footed ferret still exists. Now, that's what it looked like. And I got a good look at it. And so I don't know what to think. I mean, that's like an endangered species that could not have traveled to where I was in Idaho.
Right.
I guess it could have, but, it's remarkable.
So see what I mean? Like, I think there's some kind of something about these animals that can be messengers for spirits, because if you think about, like, logically a spirit, it's kind of this thing that's not physical, right? But it can go in between worlds and deliver certain messages through animals. It's kind of like when I was looking at that raven, man, I knew. I couldn't explain how I knew, but it did. It made it made that sinking type of real, when heavy emotion hits your gut and you can't swallow kind of thing,
And I knew that the next morning as soon as my brother said, Mom's, it's bad. You got to come home. Mm. And I knew right away. I knew right away that I had said, you can't be here. You need to leave to that.
Fascinating.
Now we were taking vigils at the hospital bed and I was sitting there, I typed up the story on my laptop. When my feet were up. I was in a chair and my feet were up on the bed with my mom. So my feet were touching my mom's feet. And, she was completely unconscious. She'd breathe and I typed the words, like I basically typed, could this ferret have been the spirit of my mother somehow? And my mother groaned. That's the only noise she made in those 2.5 days. Mm-hmm. Just as I typed that word. Could that ferret have been the spirit of my mother somehow? And she groaned.
And you heard that. Huh.
I was sitting right next to her. My feet were touching her. Yeah.
Oh my God. That's so cool, man. I mean, I'm not saying, obviously it was a tragedy, but that.
Oh yeah. Oh, it was a magical moment.
But the release from Alzheimer's is, you got to imagine that I've seen it firsthand and it's not fun, No,
it was brutal.
Yeah. So that had to have been a sad moment for you too, but like a happy moment for them, like.
Well, a relief for all of us.
Right.
My brother, sister was a big relief. Yeah.
Now,
and this is normal. I mean, I'm convinced that these stories are reoccurring over and over and over again in the lives of everyone on earth. Some people might not be observant, some people might deny them, and then some people, take them to heart. And those are these stories. And I'm certain people had beautiful stories like this, powerful stories like this, back in the caveman days. Like it's part of us.
Yeah, indeed. And you're still, what I find fascinating, especially about your blog, which is something I was talking to you about there in the break, how long you've been doing it and all of the posts that you put on there at hiddenexperience.blogspot.com. It seems like there is no end to the synchronicities that happen with this. I mean, your latest post, or at least it's the one at the top about Gertrude Abercrombie. That is.
Oh, that was just isn't that wild? That
is wild. I mean, how did nobody? I mean, I'm not saying nobody saw it, but somebody brought this to your attention.
It's Facebook. Someone just put a little thing on Facebook, and I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, so
and it was.
Tell us the story about that, actually, because I don't want to do it for you. I'm just saying it's really, really cool. You guys got to check it out.
Well, yeah, this is right in a blog, you just put a story up, and I'm not posting nearly as much as I was a decade ago. Boy, I was on fire a decade ago, and I was posting a lot. Now I just, a couple times a month, I'll put something up. But this was there's an artist from the 40s and 50s named Gertrude Abercrombie. Isn't that a great name? She lived in Chicago, and she did these weird, surreal pictures. And these pictures are totally weird.
Like Alfred Hitchcock style.
Yeah. Oh, they're spooky. Yeah, and there's just like, and there's owls in the pictures. She's always put it in. They're little. It's funny I've seen them like framed. They're not very big. So she was these tiny little paintings, and they're super trippy. And all the clouds look like flying saucers. Not all of them. She's got hundreds of paintings, and I had to cherry pick the ones that kind of fit my blog, which is owls and UFOs. And so there's these trippy pictures with these, women in skinny women in dresses and gaunt and on this kind of surreal landscape, like out at night. And the clouds are shaped like, often like hovering directly above a person, are shaped like a flying saucer in a lot of the pictures. And then a lot of owls, like sort of perched in there. So yeah, just super trippy. And and someone wrote a little note to me and said, wow, look at this. And look at you can just, it's 2020, right? So all you have to do is Google the name of the artist, and you all of a sudden get flooded with every picture she's ever done that's ever been photographed, seemingly. And I was blown away. So yeah, I mean, I've been at this for 15 years or so, and just to get hit with that was remarkable, within the last few weeks.
Yeah, that is incredible to me, because it looks like something off of a dark film. And I put this in the chat too. Like I put it in the Fringe FM chat, the link to the blog post. But that one top picture is definitely a UFO. I mean, to me it is. It's shaped like a UFO, and it's funny. Like, okay, why? Why is she doing this? So I'm going to make sure that I put in an owl and a UFO shaped type thing back during the Roswell stuff. And this is, wouldn't you have loved to have been able to talk to her though and say, what were you thinking when you made this?
So there's two ways to think about it. She was very sneaky and very aware of what she was doing, would be one way. And the other way is like, she's an artist. She's like tapping into the creative process, and just these images like, oh, an owl is a powerful image, and like, oh, I'm going to shape the cloud like this. It looked like she purposely shaped the cloud like a UFO, and in many of the pictures, and some of them, it actually looks like a UFO. It's like the cloud is it looks more like a UFO than a cloud, and there's all kinds of other mythic imagery, and there are castles and cats and stuff like that. So, and women in crowns and stuff like that. So there's this kind of mythic imagery. So she was kind of tapped into that kind of mythic imagery. And I think it's more fun to me if she did it unconsciously. Mm-hmm. Just was like, making the soup, these little ingredients, just from her soul level. And then it emerged out of the creative ether that way. That's much more fun to me than if she carefully, planned it out. Like, I'm going to put a UFO and an owl in the picture together. Yeah.
Or in the moon too. Like, you never know why they put stuff in paintings sometimes, really. That's the beauty of when, I think that's the good thing about paintings. You look at them and you go, I wonder why they put that in there,
Well, there's lots of symbolism, things are symbolic, and painters knew it. And people are very well versed in symbology. So the peace dove, we're now another bird, that we associate with the 60s. That was created by Pablo Picasso. He was an old man at the time, and there was this peace movement, and he was a artist, and they asked him to come up with a symbol for the peace movement, and he did that simple dove that you would recognize right away. Just that white dove on a green background, I think, is how he did it. And that's right from the Bible. That's like, there's a guy who knew about symbols.
Yeah. Yeah, that is pretty wild. I think, I don't know. Like, I know this is going to come up in chat, so I might as well just ask it. Like, and I don't think I've ever asked you this before, but since it's there and it's in the conspiracy world, like, what do you think this whole owl symbolism of that owl god and Bohemian Grove stuff is about? Do you have any edges on that as far as what that's about?
When I did the first book, I had to answer that question because everyone asks it. So there's a club in San Francisco called the Bohemian Club. And then outside of San Francisco is Bohemian Grove. And that's where everyone meets. And there's the big stone. Supposedly it's like a big stone that they've altered with cement. It's my understanding, to make it look a little more like an owl. Now, on the Bohemian Club, there's an owl like right on the logo. And there's owls all over the building, like owls. And you walk in the building, and there's people have there's pictures, like it's a men's club. There's pictures of it, and there's owls. And Athena is the Greek goddess of wisdom, so there's lots of references to Athena, and then there's on the doorway, above the doorway, it says, "Weaving spiders, come not here." and it has a picture of an owl. Now, the owl is a symbol of Athena, and Athena was not only the symbol of the Greek goddess of wisdom, and she had a companion owl. She was also the Greek goddess of arts and crafts, and there's a myth where she got into a battle with someone who was a weaver, and so she weaved this tapestry, and in the tapestry she was mocking all the gods, and she was making fun of Athena, like in the sort of caricature of Athena in the tapestry. And Athena got really mad and turned this woman into a spider. So that line, "weaving spiders come not here," is straight from Greek mythology referencing Athena.
Yeah, it is a little strange, right?
If it's a symbol of anything, it's a symbol of the goddess of wisdom, which would be perfect for like a men's intellectual club called the Bohemian Club.
Yeah. Do you really think, just from your research, I'm not saying you're an expert on it or anything, but do you really think that that's all? There's more to it than that. That there's some kind of grand scheme going on there. I don't know, because I've been a part of fraternities.
Powerful men that work at that are power players in global politics at the Bohemian Club. Oh yeah, and they're making decisions that we could call sinister, sure. So, and they happen to have an owl as a logo. I've wrestled with that one a lot. You try to do internet research on the Bohemian Grove. It's like it's a bottomless pit. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff out there, like drinking baby's blood, which I doubt they do, but I certainly think. that's where they made the decision to drop the atomic bomb, was at the Bohemian Grove. They had the meeting there to decide whether they were going to, that's where the decision. Yes, we've got this hellish weapon that the physicists say is, might crack a hole in the fabric of. It might crack the world open. Well, that was one of their worries, and so they said, yeah, we're going to drop this bomb on Japan. That decision was made. So that's, there's important people that make decisions there. Some of the decisions they make, I bet you could certainly qualify as sinister.
Yeah, right. Like, at least, at the very least, because they're so powerful, those guys could sit around a table, have a conversation and make a few decisions that could possibly change the way things happen in the world.
I think that's where they decided to create Israel or something. I mean, I don't know that for sure, but I know that was this. Sure. That the Bohemian Club has been around for. I have what everyone says. What everyone says when you do research into the Bohemian Grove is that there's some serious drinking going on there, like
professional drinking,
mad liquor going down there. So.
Yeah, right. I know what you're talking about there, man. I can't believe how fast this is going by. We're already at break again. Look, we'll be right back to the phone lines are now open. If you do want to ask Mike a question, now's the time to do it. We'll be right back.
Between abnormal and paranormal, there's a show called Into the Paranormal. I'm Jeremy Scott. Hear me live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern on the Fringe FM.
If you are interested in occult subjects, psychic abilities, symbols, tarot, witchcraft, magic, or anything similarly related, my book Occult Arcana will provide you with a truly objective overview of these topics and more. Written in anything but modern language, Occult Arcana was compiled to help researchers balance their quest for a better understanding of the meanings of and in such studies. Occult Arcana is available in softcover and digital form from www.thesecretteachings.info. All copies can also be autographed if requested. That's Occult Arcana from www.thesecretteachings.info.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Hey, I'm JM DeBoard, and when I want to talk about dreams, I look up my man Joe Root and his show, Lighting the Void.
Have you ever seen an ad or banner which brought you a feeling that someone is reading your mind or even listening to your conversations? Your online data is being used against you. Surfshark is a VPN service that makes online privacy protection easy and attainable. You can use it on as many devices as you'd like simultaneously. The VPN service that we use at UFO Seekers, plus 1 month free for $1.99 a month. Visit surfshark.deals/seekers. We spend almost as much time online as sleeping, and that's 6 to 8 hours a day. The internet knows a lot about us, and that's why we should care about our online data. Use Surfshark to encrypt your personal information and send it via a secure VPN tunnel so that no one can see it without your permission. Visit surfshark.deals/seekers. You need to protect yourself from surveillance and targeted advertising. Surfshark encrypts all internet traffic sent to and from your devices and ensures that your IP address remains hidden. The VPN service that we use at UFO Seekers, plus 1 month free for $1.99 a month. Visit surfshark.deals/seekers.
Introducing Shadow Light Tarot from Waking Canvas, the Fringe FM's new contributing artist, Eric Teesey. This hand-illustrated black and white self-published deck serves as a reinvention of the tarot, never before witnessed. Each of the several suits of this 88-card deck lineup form an infinite panoramic scene. Even the included visual companion guidebook is entirely hand-illustrated, cover to cover, with beautiful visuals and esoteric symbols and artwork. The newly released deck comes in a custom magnetic box with its own travel pouch. The Shadow Light Tarot Premium Deck and its travel-sized mini deck Wonderlight Tarot are both available now from WakingCanvas.com. If you use the code word FRINGE, that's FRINGE at checkout, you'll receive an extra 10% off your entire order. To discover more, including a free reading and time lapses of all the illustrated artwork, make your way over to WakingCanvas.com today. That's WakingCanvas.com.
Alex Exum.
This is Alex Exum of the Exum Experience in Live Talk, where we discuss current events, society, and culture. My shows are based in actuality, actual existence, contrasted with what was intended, expected, or believed. You can listen to me live Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 7 p.m. only on KTLK, The Fringe FM.
What's up, Joe? Hey, man, I just wanted to say your show, dude, keeps getting better and better and better. I love Lighting the Void and the Fringe FM.
You're listening to the Fringe FM, and I'm Michael Deacon reminding you can find my show right here on the Fringe FM every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, or by going to michaeldeacon.com. The choice is yours.
Well, I got to say thank you to all of you guys that have donated this month on Lighting the Void. If you can donate there. We can sure use it at lightingthevoid.com. There's a donate button at the bottom of the website. And please, if you get your T-shirts and hats, I know a few of you have ordered some. When you get some, it don't matter if it's a hat, the socks, the T-shirts, whatever you get, send us the pictures, because I've got a board, and you wait until you guys see this, man. The Void Walker board with all of y'all's pictures on it. It's gonna be rad. I'm working on it though, so it doesn't look just like a normal collage. It's gonna look cool, and then you want to get a part of that. Also, if you want to leave a shout out, you can go to lightingthevoid.com. Go to the contact page. There's a button there. It's orange, bright orange. It's the only one like that because the rest of the website's dark colored, and it's called Speak Pipe. And you can hit that button, give us a shout out, and we will produce it and throw it on the show. And Mike Clelland is our guest tonight. Tomorrow night, we're going to do open lines, and Darren from Grimerica is going to be there with us. So, that's going to be interesting. But right now, you can call in if you want to ask Mike any questions about owls, maybe your experience. That's 1-800-588-0335. You can also go to his blog at hiddenexperience.blogspot.com. His website is mikeclelland.com. There's a big section there that says, I want to hear your owl stories. Now, that thing on the blog, that is specifically for owl stories, right? I'm sure you get people clicking on that give you all kinds of stories, but that's what that's for specifically, right?
Yeah, I'm basically asking folks to let me just click on the image. Yeah, it gives you the contact info if you click on the image. Yeah, so that was just a picture I found. It's some great picture. I thought it was a great picture that someone sent me. And so I want to hear your owl stories. If you have a weird owl story, I want to hear it.
Yeah, I want to hear them too. I really do.
I hear them all day long, so I'm never tired of them.
Now, how do you tell? Like, is there anything like when, say, if 5 people tell you a story, okay, and one of them is more? Is there things that happen during these sequences that are more true because there's more parallels? Like, are there other parallels that we haven't talked about that we're missing here besides the owls just showing up? I'm sure.
Well, when the owls and UFO things show up, I mean, there's lots of them where people say, I saw a 4-foot tall on the side of the road. I get a lot of those. There's no such thing as a 4-foot tall owl. So I get a lot of people.
That's a big owl. Yeah.
It's bigger than there's no 4-foot tall owl out there on the planet Earth. Mm-hmm. But that's what people are reporting.
Can you imagine how creepy that would be though? If you saw a 4-foot owl?
Yeah. Yeah. So the implication is that they're seeing a alien, like a gray alien. That's some sort of totem. Excuse me, I said totem. A screen memory.
Gotcha.
Of something.
But the missing time is something like I had our news lady had a missing time experience for the first time, and she's like, I wonder if it has anything to do because I've been listening to your show or something. But she's watching the clock, and then all of a sudden, just kind of. I don't know if she woke up. She said she just looked again and an hour had passed by and she was still typing. Now that's kind of weird to me. I don't know if our brain shuts off or what happens during those missing time events, but that has not happened to me yet. I've had kind of like a little bit of a missing time experience, but not like that. And it does make you wonder what the hell's going on. Like you've been through regressions, right?
I've had hypnotic regressions, a few of them, and very little has come up with some of them. And I had in 2016 and 2017 and 2018, in the fall of both of those years, I had a different hypnotic regression with different hypnotherapists, and the exact same story came up, like exactly the same story came up, and it's pretty remarkable. And
which story? Which one?
We got the time. You're going to hear it? I can.
Yeah, I got plenty of time. Sure.
Okay. So there's an event that I had in March 10th, 2013, which I call my confirmation event. And then after that event, like I knew I had a UFO abduction stuff in my life. Like I'd always wondered, like there's all kinds of clues and stuff like that. And I kind of danced around it and I felt pretty certain, but I did not know. And then after March 10th, 2013, that night, I knew. So I had this set of events that took place while sleeping out under the stars in southern Utah. And it wasn't until a day later that like I had this, to tell the story properly, there's 2 stories. There's the story of that night and then the story of the hypnosis session. So like that night, it was like I was sleeping out. I heard a coyote like right near my head. Like it was remarkable. Wow. And I also looked up on this hilltop and there was so I'm sleeping out March. It's cold. I got a big winter sleeping bag. It's a wonderful, clear night. Just great. I was doing a long drive coming home from a UFO convention.
Light backpacking?
No, I was just at the car. The car was right next to me. So I was just, I just pulled off in out west. It's a lot different than the east where it's pretty recognized. You can just pull off and there's turnouts and people do this all the time. Just desert kind of environment. Yeah. This was sagebrush and junipers and around. So it was kind of shrubby around. Beautiful, just perfect. And this is not like in the national park part of Utah. This is kind of cow country.
Yeah.
And so I look up at this hilltop and I see this round structure and I say to myself, that looks just like a landed flying saucer. That looks just like a landed flying saucer. And I was like, what is it doing out here? Like it's like someone built a house, a big round house up there. That doesn't make any sense at all. And I even say, even in the moment, right in the moment, I said, hey, like I get every once in a while I get a little psychic intuition, so if this is a UFO, man, I would feel it. I would feel like the vibe of a flying saucer, right? So I looked at this thing, nothing. I felt nothing. And then later I woke up and I looked at this thing on the hilltop again and I heard there was a coyote in the sagebrush right close to me, howling away. Like, I've camped out a lot. I've never been that close to a howling coyote.
They don't get that close to you. They don't.
Oh, this one, I felt like I could have tossed a dog bone.
You might have been of the next dog bone. It might have was.
Well, I was of all the things I was worried about, I wasn't worried about. I've seen a lot of coyotes. They're pretty small. I don't think they weren't going to drag me off, I don't think. But, and then I woke up again and there's a bright light behind the bush I was camped next to. This is like middle of nowhere. There was a bright light behind the bush. And so there's another mythic image, right? The burning bush. So I'm like, I sat up in my sleeping bag and I'm like, is that a car? Is there a car parked there? Like, maybe it's a car, maybe it's someone with a flashlight. And I was like, there was actually one other car parked in the same lot, the same little turnoff. So I was like, are they walking around? Is there some car? And I didn't think anything of it. And I laid down and went back to bed. Now, after this, there was like a million synchronicities all tied into this event and a psychic vision of like that lined 3 events up on the map. And this was one of the events. And this psychic vision and all this stuff happening, the collision of all this thing, I just knew that something happened that night. And I knew that I couldn't deny the UFO thing in my life anymore. Oh, and also the first thing I did when I got home, and I've since been back to that exact site, is I looked and see if there was a round building up on the hill. There's no round building in Google Maps. And
so you saw one of these things land?
No, it was parked there. I never saw it land. For all it could have been, it looked like a round house. Someone made a big round house on a hilltop. And it was 1.6 miles away, so it was big. In clear desert night, the 1.6 miles, it was very clear.
Yeah, that's close enough in the desert so you could make it out. You could see
a big house. You could see a big house, easy. Yeah.
You didn't see any beings walking around, nothing. You just
the hypnosis session. I had no fear. This was a fun night. It's like coyotes and like I had no fear at all associated. Nothing negative associated with this. It was a fun night, in figuring it all out and playing the all the elements of this were fun, kind of exciting, and no fear at all. Now, so that's why I wanted to look at it under hypnosis, because I've had some scary stuff too, and I don't want to look at that. Now, the hypnosis session, I had 2 of them. One with Mary Rodwell from Australia.
Right.
She was in America and she was in New Hampshire, and I met with her and did a session with her. We tried to cover a lot of stuff, and other stuff came up, and the exact story emerged. But when you listen to I transcribed the audio. When you read the transcription and listen to the audio, like there's other stuff going on, like we're covering other stuff and we're jumping around a little bit. So that story isn't as clean as the one I did with Yvonne Smith, who's a hypnotherapist out of California. That one, the same exact story, but it's told cleaner with Yvonne. Now she said, here's something interesting. When we were doing the session with Yvonne's a very nice, soft-spoken woman, and I was at her office, and it was a quiet Saturday afternoon, and so it was totally pleasant. And I said, hey, when I'm under, she had read my owl book, so when I'm under, you just ask me, like, what's up with all the owls? Like, because I'm curious what I'm going to say, in whatever state you want to call hypnosis.
Yeah.
And she said, sure. So she takes me back to that night of March 10th, and it's the event where I'm looking at the light behind the bush, and I'm in the hypnosis session. I'm like, well, there's this light, it's behind the bush, and I know it's them. I know it's them. I know it's them. And then all of a sudden I'm saying, and then on the hilltop nearby is the round structure, and then all of a sudden I say, I'm out. I'm looking down at this big round thing. And I'm floating above it, but I think my body is still in the sleeping bag. Whatever, like I'm out of.
So you're out of your body.
I'm out of body after seeing this light, seemingly. And so I'm very cautious to take this literally. So these little snippets of visuals show up, and I'm just talking. She's asking me questions, and I'm answering them straight away. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, she's like, what? And I'm like, and there's a sense of like, and I'm inside this, and I'm walking in a hallway. So I'm just going from looking down at this thing to walking in a hallway. There's no. It's just like from one frame to the next in the movie. And I'm walking down this hallway. Now I'm 6 foot tall, and I'm in this hallway, and I'm right away. I'm like I'm not tall. I'm not tall. I'm short. And I look to my right and I look to my left, and on each side of me are these gray aliens, and they're walking with me down this hall. We're like all walking side by side. And I look down at myself, and I've got this skinny fingers, and I've got this tight fitting uniform on, and I've got these skinny legs and skinny arms, and I'm short. And I'm like, I tell her, it's like, you can hear me say it, like, I'm a gray alien. I'm a gray alien. I'm like, oh, how did I get here? How did I get in this hallway? I'm a gray alien now. And she says, she's very calm. She says, just tell what happens. What happens next? And I'm like, how did I get here? And in both times with Mary and Yvonne, I go through the same kind of astonishment. And I talked about it a little bit and said, it felt like I just arrived here out of body, like in some spirit essence. And they had a rubber suit waiting for me. So it felt like I just went whoosh, right into the rubber suit. And the next thing, the rubber suit is just walking down the hall. Like I'm a gray alien. It was totally, now I'm very cautious to believe this, literally. So, and the next thing that happens is I'm in this conference room. So there's a curved hallway. It was at least exactly like the hallway you would imagine that would go around the interior of a round flying saucer, right? So it's this curved, shiny, gray, glowy hallway. And then just click, the next thing I know, I'm in this conference room. It's this ugly, tacky conference room, like you would, like at a crappy motel in Muncie, Indiana. And I'm like, how did I get here? What's going on? And then I'm standing in front of this table, and on the other side of the table is like a group of beings, and they're kind of fuzzed out. Like I can't quite perceive it out. I sure get the impression that it's a bunch of gray aliens behind this table. And you know what it feels like? It feels like a trial. It feels like a grand jury meeting. And I said, I think there's the two gray aliens that were with me are like behind me or just a little behind me. I don't see them, but I feel like they're behind me. I talked to this woman who does near-death experience research. You know, like people who die and then they go through the tunnel and into the white room or whatever. Uh-huh. And they say, oh, this is classic near death. This shows up all the time where people say, I'm in this other environment. I'm looking at this like tribunal or something like that, a meeting of people on the other side of the table. And they even say that you have like spirit guides or something that are behind you that you don't see them, but you know they're right behind you. So that was really odd for me. Like she's like, oh, that's the near death thing.
Yeah.
Now, so anyway, so I'm standing there and I'm like, why am I here? And they say, now is the time. I'm like, what does that mean? Now is the time. What am I doing here? And they say, you volunteered for this. I'm like, I didn't volunteer for this. Why am I here? Now is the time. And it just got sort of stuck in this thing where, well, all they would say is now is the time and you volunteered for this. And it went back and forth. And all of a sudden it's like this snap. And I got so angry. And this is like, to listen to this on the audio is gut wrenching because I start sobbing uncontrollably and I chew these guys out, these guys behind the table. I'm swearing at them. I'm dropping the F-bomb. I'm like, you, and I say, you never told me it was going to be this hard. You never told me about sadness. You never told me about loneliness. You never told me it was going to be this hard being here on this planet. And they say, you volunteered for this. And I'm like, you don't understand how hard it is here. You don't understand what it means to be here. So
you're getting really emotional during this thing.
I'm sobbing at him. I'm swearing at him. I am pissed off.
It takes a lot for you to do that too, not knowing you.
Well, I was like, it's gut wrenching to hear it. And then all of a sudden there's this point when it's like, I get to this like heightened sense of emotion and then it just snap. And I remember like lying on Yvonne's couch, like I was so tense. I was crying so hard. I was like rigid with tension, my whole body. And then I just like, it felt like like a pool toy, like those mats you float in the pool with. It felt like I was like one that was blown up too tight. And that was me on the couch. And then someone just put a pin in me and I just.
Yeah, you were probably freaking out. They had to calm you down, I bet, or something. Is that what happened?
Here's what I said. I said, in this very calm voice, after freaking out, I just said, I think I'm back in my sleeping bag.
What the hell?
And I was so calm, it felt like my heart stopped. I am not kidding. It felt like I didn't take a breath for a minute and my heart stopped. It's like listening to it, there's like dead silence for a long time. And I say, I think I'm back in the sleeping bag. And Yvonne asked me a bunch of questions like, what did they tell you? Did they give you any message? You can tell me. Go ahead, you can tell me, or you're allowed to tell me. And it's like, I don't think I can tell you. Like, I can't tell you. And it said, it feels like I'm in this under hypnosis says, it feels like I'm in a spy movie and I'm holding the envelope that I'm supposed to open someday, but I can't open it yet.
Wow.
And then she said, and Mike, what is your connection with the owls? And without skipping a beat, I said, the owls are not important. And then I mumbled a little bit. I was talking about like symbolism and an artist, and you can hear me I'm like mumbling and I'm trying to fight for my words. And all of a sudden I speak. Now, like when people are under hypnosis, they are very whispery. It's very calm. It's actually kind of hard to hear it when you try to transcribe it. And all of a sudden I speak very clearly. And this is stuff I never would say. I said, the owls, I've said this before, so I have this spiel kind of down. But this is what I said. The owls are not important. The owl is a symbol on a door. The owl is not important, but the door is important. And the owl is the correct symbol for the door. And then I had this visual of being like in this tight little claustrophobic hallway, like a cheap hotel or something like that. And it's a tight hallway, and there's all these doors. And I'm standing in front of this one door, and I say, we are in this tight claustrophobic hallway. And on the other side of the door, and then the door in front of me opens up, and it's like this vision of space and galaxies and swirling nebulas and stuff like that. And I say, and on the other side of the door is an infinite vastness. And that was it. And I do not know where that came from. That was like poetry coming out of my mouth.
But it was you speaking, right? It wasn't something.
It was me. Oh yeah, it's me. It was definitely me. I mean, it's right in the transcript. So, I mean, I did it myself. I had put the headphones on and listened to it and typed it all out. And so I was presented with this wild story where I like had turned into a gray alien, and then I find out later it overlaps with a near-death experience, and in both times, like I had the same emotional reaction, like I sobbed uncontrollably, and the same chewed him out the same way, like swore at him, and so it was like basically the exact same movie. It was like watching a rerun of a TV sitcom or something like that. It was frame for frame the exact same story appeared twice, and I'm like, oh, now here's the weird thing. Okay, so
it gets weirder, huh?
It's weirder. I drive home. So that morning, right? So that happened. I don't have no memory of any of this except for a light behind a bush and a round structure on a hill. I drive home back to my house in Idaho. I started the Owl book that day.
That's when you did it.
That's when I started it. It started initially as a long essay that I posted on my blog, but I started that long essay. That long essay is essentially the foundation of the Owl book. So I started the Owl book that day.
Man, have you ever thought about because there's a timeline thing on your blog. Like, have you ever thought about writing just a full autobiography though? I think you should.
Book. That's the most recent book. That's in a way that's
that's what it is, huh? I got to get it.
It's not everything, and I don't. But it's all the stuff about trying to make sense of my UFO experiences. Yeah, that's my most recent book, which is the collection of blog posts. I actually Richard Dolan was kind of needling me. He said, you got to do a biography. You got to do a memoir.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh God, it's like I did it in a way because it's in the form of the blog. But if I did a memoir, I would say, well, 10 years ago, this thing happened. And here's my recollection. And the blog post is, oh my God, this thing happened last night. I am freaking out. I cannot make sense of this. And then there's little addendums to the blog as I another thing happens and another thing happens. So the blog had an immediacy that a memoir never would have. So I cleaned the blog posts up. I made I put the commas in the right place and cleaned up some of the redundancies and such. But so that book is called Hidden Experience, and that just came out this summer. And that's then the whole book culminates with the story I just told, that hypnosis story.
Man, you have had a very, very interesting life with this. There's no doubt about it. I want, like when we come back to it, I want to kind of get into that because we've never really, I've kind of like talked to you from an expertise level on the owl thing, but I don't think that, you know what, man, I think your life is a bit not more interesting, but as interesting. Like some of the stuff that you've been through yourself. People just don't get into this just because they're curious. I mean, they do, but not like you have, man. Not this way.
Well, it's so the way I end the book in a way is by saying these events, like, cause I had to really lay it out in the book. Like I had a timeline and stuff, but I really have to lay it out in the book where it's like these events, like preceded these, what would seem like UFO events or powerful synchronicities. And I weight these the same. I weight owls, UFO events, and powerful synchronicities all the same. Like I don't put more, I don't give one more weight than the other. And I basically, after putting it all in a book form, I was like, when I wrote the conclusion, essentially, I said, these events seem to have been presented in an organized fashion. And if I had been hit too soon with some of these things, I would have cracked. Like would have been too much for me. So they were incrementally getting more and more powerful in a way that so I could handle it. That was my conclusion.
Well, that's a good conclusion too. And there's some other stuff that's happened to you throughout your timeline too. I want to discuss with you. Pretty interesting stuff. You guys, we're at the top of the hour already, going by just as fast as I thought it would. Go check out the blog, hiddenexperience.blogspot.com, MikeClelland.com. That's where you want to go for reference too. We'll be right back right after this. Stay with us.
Lighting the Void Radio.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of the Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers. Have you ever seen an ad or banner which brought you a feeling that someone is reading your mind or even listening to your conversations? Your online data is being used against you. Surfshark is a VPN service that makes online privacy protection easy and attainable. You can use it on as many devices as you'd like simultaneously. Surfshark encrypts all internet traffic sent to and from your devices and ensures that your IP address remains hidden. The VPN service that we use at UFO Seekers, plus 1 month free for $1.99 a month. Visit surfshark.deals/seekers.
Have you suffered in silence or experienced stress from a paranormal experience? Even if it happened 20 years ago, when thinking or talking about it today still makes you feel sick to your stomach or makes your heart beat faster, or you suddenly can't breathe. Maybe you even feel those old familiar signs of a panic attack trying to reach the surface. You could have unprocessed emotional responses. Those reactions of terror and trauma are no different than living through a horrible assault, childhood abuse, or a terrible car accident. It can be nearly impossible to find help. The very instance of seeing a ghost or encountering a cryptid could be clinically described as seeing or hearing things that aren't there. You could be considered psychotic, or at best, you're just not taken seriously. Out of a growing mountain of research, the National Institute for Integrative Healthcare showed that 8 out of 10 veterans who completed just 6 one-hour EFT sessions no longer tested positive for PTSD. If you've had paranormal trauma, you can contact Metaphorical Archaeology by calling 214-995-3754. Again, that's 214-995-3754 for a discreet consultation.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant. Give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
When I'm done running with the wolves after hunting down a half-ton bison, I look forward to a mind-teetering escapade evening on the Fringe FM.
The truth is out there.
There's something out here.
And so are we. KTOK Digital Broadcasting, the Fringe FM.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
This is the Rookie Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie. Scientists have discovered a new type of antibiotic using artificial intelligence, a major breakthrough in the fight against the growing problem of drug resistance. A new powerful algorithm was used to analyze more than 100 million chemical compounds in a matter of days. The newly discovered compound was able to kill 35 types of potentially deadly bacteria, said researchers. Antibiotic-resistant infections have risen in the recent years, up 9% in England between 2017 and 2018. If antibiotics are taken incorrectly, harmful bacteria living inside the body can become resistant to them, and the medicines may not work when needed. Since 2014, the UK has cut the number of antibiotics in use by more than 7%. However, the number of drug-resistant bloodstream infections increased by 35% from 2013 to 2017. The discovery was made using an algorithm inspired by the architecture of the human brain. Scientists trained it to analyze the structure of 2,500 drugs and other compounds to find those with the most antibacterial qualities that could kill E. coli. Astronomers with Catalina Sky Survey have spotted what might be a mini-moon, an asteroid that is temporarily captured by our planet's gravity. There are only a small percentage of passing space rocks that are likely to become mini-moons. According to a 2012 supercomputer simulation, including over 10 million virtual asteroids, only 18,000 got captured in Earth's orbit. They are very hard to spot and they are super rare. Our mini-moon will be on its way out of the Earth's orbit by April of 2020. However, it is possible that the simulation is incorrect, so observations are ongoing. Either way, by studying our mini-moon's strange looping orbit, we can learn more about how these objects are captured by the Earth and how we can look for them in the future. The University of Manitoba's Archives and Special Collections Unit received a private donation by Canadian ufologist Chris Rutkowski, adding 30,000 UFO-related materials to the university's psychic research and spiritualism collection, making it a hub for paranormal archival research in Canada. Shelley Sweeney, the recent retired head of Archives and Special Collections, said the artifacts donated by Mr. Rutkowski details various UFO sightings. The donation includes 20,000 UFO reports filed since 1989, 10,000 UFO-related documents from the Canadian government, and artifacts from a 1967 encounter with the UFO in Falcon Lake, Manitoba. Also, there are more than 2,000 books on UFOs and research from 10 books by Mr. Rutkowski. This is the Rogie Report News on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie.
888-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada. You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
It's been a fantastic conversation tonight so far with our guest, Mike Clelland, MikeClelland.com, hiddenexperience.blogspot.com. And I first met you at that conference, had no idea what owls had anything to do with UFOs. I was a baby in ufology, and now, I mean, Mike, I've learned so much from you, and there's still, I mean, look, I've had a lot of guests on the show, and I'm not taking away anything from, but between you, Whitley Strieber, there's like my top 10 people I feel like I could talk to for hours, and you're definitely one of them. But everybody knows that about me because I talk about you all the time, man. You are one of the top 10. But there's, why?
Go on.
There's so much about you that I still want to know, man. Yeah, but go ahead.
I took it's late at night, and I have a tiny cup of coffee here, so that might be why I'm so chatty tonight. So.
Yeah. Is it one of those tiny, powerful packed punches of coffee, right?
It is. I have a tiny little espresso maker, yes.
Yeah, that's the best kind.
Espresso makers. It's like, sometimes I grit my teeth a little bit when I drink that stuff, but,
yeah, I understand.
Yeah, so.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about, like, when you first started getting into this stuff, you had some experiences, like you were born in the 60s, right? You had a couple of sightings throughout, I guess, your childhood and teenage years. You got into books. You got into Whitley's book in 87 and 91. You picked up the UFO Case book by Kevin D. Randall. I mean, you're really into this stuff. And then this is the funny thing that happens to people, I think, once they really start diving deep into this subject. So, and you talk about from 1992 through 99, you were diagnosed with clinical depression, and you spent 7 years on antidepressants and stuff. And this is all on your blog, so I'm not like putting private info out there about anything. No. And you talk about, I had to go through a lot of hard work and deep self-examination. The whole metaphor of death and rebirth is entirely appropriate, and it absolutely is. If anybody's ever dealt with depression, then they know what you're talking about. But in 93, you wake up in the middle of the night and you see 5 figures outside your window. Can you tell me about that event?
Yeah, this is so I would have been 30 years old in 1993. It was winter of 92, 93. So it was either January or February in 1993. I don't have an exact I don't know the exact time. Now I was this was right at the height of my clinical depression. This was like, it was bad right then. So I'm alone in this little house in Maine, and I wake up in the middle of the night, and there's this bright light coming in through the window. And so it seemed unusual, right? It seemed like that. I thought at first we have a motion sensor light in the yard, and I thought it was the motion sensor light had come on. And I sat up on my elbow, and I looked out, and there were 5 gray aliens. Now on the blog, there's an illustration that I did, and it's also in the new book. And so, like, this was a scary image. Like, they were like right close to the house. They were obviously walking towards the house. There were no other houses there. There was like, I was the only one in the house, and there's like, and I had this feeling, this sense. It was a scary image, right? They're backlit by this bright light, and it would have been perfect. It was if the what was backlighting them was like a big flying saucer. That wasn't what it was. It looked like a light about the size of a washing machine or something. And I had this voice in my head that said, "Oh yes, they're here. Now is the time to put your head on the pillow and shut down." And I just laid my head on the pillow, and boom, I was out. Now, this is a scary image. I don't know how long this lasted. 30 seconds, 20 seconds, right? That's not long. And it's like changed the fabric of my life, this 20-second event. The next morning, it was wintertime. I never even walked out to see if there were footprints in the snow. I dismissed it completely as a dream. And what was interesting is there was the feeling. It was dreamlike, that would be fair to say, but it exactly matched the inside of my bedroom at the time, right? And there was no distortion as far as like a dreamlike thing. Like, I never dream I'm in in my own bedroom. Or if I dream I'm somewhere, it's like, oh, I'm at the house I grew up in, but it's always crooked, or it's always mismatched, or there's something off. This was dead on. This was my room. This was the window. This was looking out the yard. But accompanying this was this weird feeling of like hyper clarity, this weird emotional calm, and this weird, almost like head in the fishbowl kind of heightened reality. And it's hard to explain. And I talked to one woman who had experiences, and she had a close-up UFO sighting. And she said this flying saucer was right near her car. And I think she was stopped in traffic, if I remember. And she was in a convertible, so she had this unobstructed view of this craft. Now, she said being close to that craft was like, when you take two magnets and they click together, and you pull them apart and you rotate them, and then you try to push them together again, and they're at the opposite poles, and you can't push them together, and they kind of warble. Yeah. It's weird. There's nothing to see, right? There's nothing to see in between the magnets, but there's this weird energy. Wobbling. Yeah. Yeah. And she said, you know what it was like? It was like being in between those two magnets. That's what it felt like, that weird warbling energy. Huh. And when she said that, I was like, I knew exactly what she meant, because she was exactly describing what I was trying to describe there, that feeling of looking out the window. And I've had that feeling a few more times in environments that seem to match this UFO stuff. And I've asked people about this kind of thing a lot, and people will say like, oh yeah, I know just what you're talking about. So there's like this it felt like I was in a altered reality. Now it also, what was weird was the sense of like, oh yes, they're here. Like there was a real strong sense of like, oh God, it's them again. They're back. It's them. It's there. Here they are again. That was a weird feeling.
Does it feel like deja vu kind of though?
You know what it felt like? It felt like deja vu. It felt like I was tapped into another side of myself, like an alternate identity or personality. That's hard to me. That's a hard one to parse out, but that's sort of what it felt like. It felt like, oh yeah, that's always been in me. Like I've always known about them.
Like something
for some
familiar.
reason, I just in my waking reality, I can't remember them. But wherever I was in this warbling reality is like, oh yeah, it's them again.
Wow. Yeah, see, the only time I've ever felt anything like that was when I had that one big out of body experience I always talk about. And it's so funny to me that when you were talking about these things, I know this stuff is interrelated. Like if you take Whitley, for example, and when he came on the show, I knew Whitley from Communion and obviously his abduction experiences in the Art Bell days and stuff. But my listeners were sending me all kinds of stuff that I had no idea that he was doing. Like Whitley he's been to the Monroe Institute. He had been studying Gurdjieff. He'd been looking into the out-of-body experience and was trying to put it all together. And I'm thinking, okay, if Whitley Strieber is doing this, then there's something interrelated about whatever it is, this out-of-body experience. I mean, you even talked about it.
It was totally like, it blew my mind. I didn't guess that. I had no framework for that. It was just like, I just blurted it out. I said it, right? I said, I'm out of my body. My body's still in the sleeping bag. Yeah. I'm looking down at this big craft.
So then you move out west and you go on to studying this stuff. You had a pretty big illness happen to you in 94, right? And then you're just drawn into your research. You visit a crop circle, and around 2006, you start having multiple owl experiences.
So the 2006, I think I must have told you this story that was where I went camping with a woman, and she was a total stranger. Like we lived right next to Yellowstone National Park, and it's like camping culture there. Like everyone goes camping. So there's like, that's like a first date, hey, let's go camping. Sure. Like, like
Christy.
With Kristen. Yeah. Christy or Kristen. Yeah. So, yeah. And then, so she, so it's someone I really didn't know. So we go in the mountains, and I am making dinner. we went without a tent because it was going to be a beautiful night, and we knew it was going to be a beautiful night. So we went without a tent. We're making dinner on this camper. I'm making dinner. I was like teach this stuff, so I was totally in my element. And we're having this conversation. She's like, wow, I'm like impressed. Like she's saying some stuff about spiritual stuff, and she's opening up, and I'm like, wow. Like right at the moment I thought, I'm impressed. I didn't expect this. An owl flies over us, and then another owl, and then a third owl. And so these 3 owls fly over us, and we get to the point where we, finish dinner, and we lay our sleeping bags down in the dirt and look up at the stars, and we lay down, and the owls are still flying around us. And so you lying on your back, and an owl flies over your face. They don't make any noise, right? They're silent in flight. And so the stars get blotted out, like blink for just a second. And it was really powerful. It was really magical. So we walk out the next morning. We just went out for one night, and we get back to town by lunchtime. And I said, hey, if I go camping again, I'll give you a call. And she said, great. And then 4 days later, I called her up and I said, I'm going to go camping one more night. Do you want to come? And she said, sure. So we went to a different part of the mountains, and it was colder this time. And when sunset was coming along, I said, let's hike up to that hill. So we hike up to this hill and watch the sun go down, and 3 owls flew around us just like before. And before, they kind of kept their distance. They would be way over there, and they would kind of swoop down, but not very close. This time, man, they were landing at our feet. They were landing on the branches right next to us. It was mind-blowing. Like, to have it happen once was pretty cool. To have it happen twice with the same person in a totally different area 4 days later was it kind of freaked me out. Now, what I didn't say then and what I'm saying now is, in the moment, especially the second time, I was looking at these owls. These were real owls. They were like, 11 inches tall. They were cute, and they were really beautiful. And in that moment, I heard a voice in my head that said, this has something to do with the UFOs. I'm looking at an owl. There's no UFOs. I'm looking at an owl, and I hear a voice in my head that says, this has something to do with UFOs.
That's a wild notion too, right? For anybody, I think that would be a wild, you'd had to question that, like, really?
Well, I was aware of the owl stuff because having read Communion and stuff like that, owls show up in the literature all the time as far as connected to, so I was like aware that, like, could this be a screen memory? Am I seeing a screen memory? No, these are real owls. But what it did was it forced me to, like, that's when I just went hog wild. I was like, I'm looking into this. Like, I'm looking into the owl thing. I'm looking into the UFO thing. I'm like, and leading up to this, like, I had those experiences, the 5 aliens out my window. Like, I wasn't going to go there. I was not going to deal with this. I was going to deny it. I was going to push it away. And I had missing time event when I was a kid. I had UFO sightings when I was a kid. And like, I was not going to deal with this.
But not dealing with it, did that cause things to get better or worse for you emotionally, depression wise? Did it?
I don't know. That's hard to say because like, so I have family history depression. So it's on my mother's side of the family. So there's complete, go to the doctor. They give you the little checklist. And one of the first questions the doctor asks is, you have a family history of this? And like, yeah, grandma on my mom's side. So I'm predisposed to depression. Now, I told you that story before where that was at my darkest point when those
beings showed up. Yeah.
Beings showed up out the window. And I have actually in the blog, and I say, I have wondered if they arrived to keep me from committing suicide, if they did something to keep me from committing suicide. So I don't have any proof of that. And I don't want to say, like, you could take that out of context and say, like, aliens saved my life, which I don't think is true. But I certainly have thought about it because the timing is too perfect.
Yeah. Well, that, and too, a lot of times I think, like when I was speaking with Geraldine Orozco, I think a lot of times things happen to us. It's really weird, man, because we think, like, why don't they just come down here and just tell us the story and tell us reality so we all can get these answers? And I asked Daniel Joseph this, and he's like, there's a natural way to grow spiritually and cosmically. You can't just, he's like, if they come down here and they just tell us all this stuff, we're not going to be able to handle it. They're watching us and growing with us, and even some of us are a part of them. It's really strange, And
yeah,
in October of 2007, you said you met with Bud Hopkins and you tell him your story, and he calls it confirmation anxiety. Now, what does that mean specifically? Like, I know you created an essay about it, but just kind of short form. What was Bud telling you?
Oh, this is a tough one to tell quick. This is in the book too. There was an event where my girlfriend and I both woke up. Okay, this is like or 2:30 in the morning for you. And I've talked about this before. I'm very cautious to tell this one on because my girlfriend at the time and I woke up in the act of sex. Both of us at the same time. We both blurred out. What just happened?
Woke up and you were just having sex. That's weird.
In both of us.
Okay.
And we both wake up. All of a sudden, we're both awake, and we both say, both at the same time, we both say, "What just happened?"
Holy hell!
And I always thought that was weird. Now, so I told that story to Bud, and he said, and I said, "Have you ever heard a story like this before?" And he rolled his eyes, and I could tell he'd heard it many, many times.
Yeah.
He gave me this look, and he said, basically, yeah, this is what you just described gets reported a lot. And I've talked to there's a guy named Joe Montaldo, who's kind of a wild card in this field, but I asked him the same question. I told him the story, and I said, "Have you ever heard this before?" And he said, "Only about 1,000 times." And I've talked to other people who've had very similar experiences, and that's all in the essay in the third book. But, and I said to Bud, you know what it was like? Well, I said to a friend of mine, the guy I was staying at his house in New York City, my friend from college. His name's Peter. And I said to Peter, you know what it was like? It was like you have to get into something consciously. We were doing something you had to get into consciously, but we arrived there unconsciously, and it was really jarring. And I told him that, and then he had to go pick up his daughter at the elementary school, which is just a short walk away. So he left the house, and I was at his apartment all alone. And I called up my old girlfriend. Her name is Kelly. That's a pseudonym. And I called her up, and I said, I basically wanted to hear, you got to tell me this story. What do you remember? Because we never talked about it. And she said, "Do you remember that night?" She said, "Yes." And I could tell she was not going there. She did not want to talk about it.
Right.
And I had always been friends and stuff like that. So it was not and I was like, "No, I want to hear it." And I pressed her pretty hard, and she got kind of angry at me. And "I want to hear this." And she said, well, it was weird because we were doing something that you had to arrive in consciously. We were doing something you had to arrive in consciously, but we arrived there unconsciously, and it was really jarring. She said the exact same thing, almost word for word.
Whoa.
And that was what was the confirmation anxiety, which I talked with
wild.
Bud.
Yeah, okay, I get it now.
That scared me.
Yeah, confirmation anxiety makes a lot of sense now. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, because
all of a sudden,
I must be still an amateur at this stuff, because you're saying this is a common thing. I don't hear this a lot, man. Maybe it's because we talk about the consciousness and the occult and mysticism so much that I don't hear about this a lot, but I'm hearing a lot about it more lately. I'm
tapped into people who are doing. I'm tapped into people who are doing a lot of research and stuff like that. So yeah. I'm way inside baseball at this point.
Yeah, you can say that again, brother. Yeah, you are. You definitely are. And and things just kind of get more intense for you too there, right? Like as it goes on, you had a pretty crazy experience in 2009. Right. You talked about late at night, you were preparing to post your missing time experience from 74, but you were frightened. You were sharing a story, and then you received an email from a childhood friend named Cindy, and you kind of go and talk about just how crazy this is, the synchronistic timing of it and everything.
Right. So it was wintertime, it was March. I just started the blog. And the blog was only synchronicities, which I have a lot of, and they're pretty fun. They make a great blog post, right? They got a punchline at the end. You can write up a short little essay. Now, so I had an event where I had missing time while walking home from a high school football game. And this story, walking home from a high school football game and then getting to a point in the neighborhood, which is right in front of Cindy's house. And I had... There was a bright orange flash in the sky. I was with a friend at the time, and we were all 12 years old. And there was a bright flash in the sky, and then it just poof went back to normal. So it was totally silent. It was basically it was autumn in the Midwest. It was a beautiful autumn night. So it was basically the starry night, and then click, orange sky, click, starry night.
What?
It was weird. So and I've talked to people who've had that experience too, almost word for word what I just described. And then when I got home, I wanted to be home in time to see a television show called Kolchak the Night Stalker. And
Cool.
So you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Yeah. And I missed it. I walked in the house. My parents were angry at me and they're like, "Why are you out so late?" I'm like, "I'm not out late. I'm home. It's 9:30. I'm not out late." And they said, "No, it's 11:30. You're too young to be out this late." They were angry. And I was like, it didn't make any sense to me. And then the next Monday morning at school, I brought it up with my friend and he said, "Oh yeah, we saw a UFO with lights and everything." And I was like, "What?" And I've since contacted him and he does not remember saying that.
Don't you hate that? I have the same thing.
That's interwoven into the mystery just as much as anything else. People just this kind of these kind of lost memories like this. Yeah,
I hate
so. So I was ready to post. I had it all written up. This whole story. And that sounds like UFO abduction. And I had it all written up, and I was going to put it on the blog. And I was like, I'm not brave enough. And I had a picture of Cindy's house from Google Maps with an X on the map. And I was like, I am not brave enough to post this story. And then this ping comes through and it was from Cindy. And I hadn't talked to her in 36 years. And she picked that moment when my hands were over the keyboard when I was saying, I am not brave enough.
What?
That's when the email ping came through. And you know who there's two pings. It went ping, ping. And there were two emails. You know who the other one was from? Whitley Strieber.
Wow.
He had never emailed me before.
That's making the hair stand up on my arms. Like, yeah, that's a big time synchronicity. So, so that's what I'm saying, man. Like, this mission that you're on right now is definitely what you're supposed to be doing. You kind of know that because these things keep happening for you because I've had the same experience with this radio show kind of thing. Like, that you're going down the road you're supposed to be going. At least I feel that. Maybe that's not true, but this road leads you to these experiences.
The better way to say it for me, the better is to say, like, I'm on the river and it's easier to flow with the current than it is to fight the current.
Yeah. Yeah. I got what you're saying. That makes sense too.
I'm in a canoe on a river and I'm just like, it's totally easy just to let the river make these decisions for me rather than try to fight it and try to, paddle upstream or cross current or something like that. So, but yeah, so I'm, and I've had very little feedback of, what would you call it? Pushback from anyone. Like, I've had almost no negative repercussions of this. I mean, I'm sure people are like rolling their eyes behind my back, but my brother and sister they're very conservative folks given this kind of stuff. And there's been very little pushback. They haven't really. Yeah. So
like all of the stuff that you were kind of afraid would happen hasn't happened to the extent as far as the blowback you thought you would get.
Exactly. And Whitley Strieber got the blowback. So that was 30 years ago, and my stuff started 10 years ago. So something happened in that interim 20 years where the population has accepted this much more than it would have, in the mid 80s.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And well, I hope, that has something to do with all of what we're doing, what you're doing, what even people like To the Stars, even it doesn't matter what you believe, what you don't. I really think more and more people are accepting this. There's actually more to the story, and we've only got 30 minutes left here in the broadcast, so we'll be right back. I'll get to your questions as well. Stay with us. We're with Mike Clelland here on Lighting the Void.
Listening to the Fringe FM.
Okay, here we go. AncientLifeOil.com. AncientLifeOil.com. Now this is for CBD. AncientLifeOil.com. Again, for CBD. Where do I get CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. It's pretty good stuff. Organic, non-GMO. We are the Ferrari of CBDs. AncientLifeOil.com. They say when you mention a person's name 3 times when you first meet, that you're going to remember. So I'd say to you, nice to meet you, AncientLifeOil.com. It's AncientLifeOil.com, right? Nice to know that you help people. AncientLifeOil.com. Think about this. Occasional stress, occasional anxiety, occasional inflammation, occasional stiffness, and intruders that get you down. AncientLifeOil.com. Okay, so I'm going to give you a fact for the day. So Ancient Life Oil does not help you with business deals. Hold on a second. If you feel better, it could help you make a better decision. Okay, I'm wrong. Just remember to go to ancientlifeoil.com.
If you are interested in occult subjects, psychic abilities, symbols, tarot, witchcraft, magic, or anything similarly related, my book, Occult Arcana, will provide you with a truly objective overview of these topics and more. Written in anything but modern language, Occult Arcana was compiled to help researchers balance their quest for a better understanding of the meanings of and in such studies. Occult Arcana is available in softcover and digital form from www.thesecretteachings.info. All copies can also be autographed if requested. That's Occult Arcana from www.thesecretteachings.info.
Hola, Fringe listeners. This is Dave Cruz of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Listen, I want to tell you about G.I. Joy from GetTheTea.com. It's the best alchemical concoction of goodies for your stomach and digestive system I can recommend, and that's all based on my experience. Packed with colostrum, acidophilus, aloe, peppermint, and turmeric. If you do your own research, then you know this is the bee's knees for the stomach and digestion. Now, due to Big Brother's ears and the eye in the sky, you know I can't go into the details about what it helped me with. All I can say is I got relief. It's non-GMO, no fillers, no preservatives, manufactured right here in the US of A, and delivered to you by the only people who stay on top of the game and are out in front. Go grab a bottle of G.I. Joy at GetTheTea.com and see what all the fuss is about. Again, that's GetTheTea.com.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied, but you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
In your face, all over the place. We're online 24/7. 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
You're listening to the Fringe FM.
You can tug all day long on a carpet that's been glued to the floor. Then you hurt. There are many strong glues out there. Let's see, there's liquid nails and Gorilla Glue. You ever try to remove 3M 5200? That adhesive is strong. Then there's bathroom caulk, silicone rubber, adhesive tape, super glue, flex tape, and stickers. Graffiti. Scientists have come up with glues that stay stuck and can't be removed. Until now. Until Handyman Formula by DeBond. That's right. 95% of adhesives become unstuck when you spray Handyman Formula directly on them. Just spray, wait a few minutes, and remove. It's amazing. Most adhesives become unstuck when you use Handyman Formula. Visit DeBondCorporation.com or MCMaster.com. Call 561-575-4200. This stuff really works. Handyman Formula by DeBond, a great Christmas gift.
All right. LightingTheVoid.com is our website. TheFringe.fm, that is the station that we're on. Stay tuned. More radio coming to you after this. The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable is coming up. right after this broadcast. Don't forget, too, that we're going to be at the UFO conference, the Ozark Mountain 33rd Annual UFO Conference in April the 10th, Easter weekend, I believe. And that's the first place that I met our guest tonight, Mike Clelland, from MikeClelland.com, also the author of The Messengers. And I got to say, man, like going through your timeline, I wonder, I can definitely, I guess the main theme that I'm seeing through all of the stuff that's happened to you is the struggle of some kind of internal struggle about telling this story. But now I don't, you're all about it. You don't struggle anymore telling these stories, do you? Like, not like you used to.
Well, it's a struggle still, sure. But it's all kinds of things are a struggle, and that doesn't make it bad. But it was, it wasn't so much telling the stories. It was like trusting and believing that it was really happening to me. That was the struggle. Like, I wasn't going to go there. Like, I fought it. And I was doing a blog where I was speculating. The blog was my, like, I was wrestling with these demons, like on a blog, for the whole world. I mean, obviously the whole world didn't see it, but I mean, if, people, I had readers that would follow it and, is this happening? Why me? What's happening? I would just post these synchronicities, these powerful stories. And as I said before, it's not like a memoir where you're like reading it, 10 years later. It's like things are like, this happened last night. I had this experience today. I had a wild owl experience just now. It happened just now. I'm writing about it.
Man, that is wild. That is wild too. And, in Halloween of 2009, you talked to a woman named Anya who was channeling.
Anya Briggs, yeah.
And you were like, you said, I just came out of an intense month. You're starting to accept things more, which I know how that feels too, where you go through these breakthroughs of acceptance, regardless of what society thinks. You're like really accepting this stuff. And you say awakening would be an appropriate way to describe it. And then you have like vivid dreams. So were you having precognitions of things that were going to happen to you after that, like in February of 2010? Because you're talking about you had vivid dreams that foreshadow events in Laughlin, Nevada. So you're starting to record your dreams. Yeah.
So that's a funny one too. I had this dream, which is funny because I recorded it. Like, I've never done that. So you can go on my blog and listen to the recording. Like, I woke up, I had this powerful dream, cool. And I woke up, and it was the morning I was going to be driving to the Laughlin UFO conference. And I had this incredibly vivid dream. And the dream was, and I recorded it, right? So I have a full transcription of the dream minutes after it happened. So I'm like, I got out of bed, went downstairs, got my voice recorder, went back upstairs and recorded it. And I speak into the recorder and I'm saying, I'm in this forest, and it's this really, the trees are really spaced evenly, and they're all thin pine trees, and there's kind of a flat, bottom, and there's no branches down low, and I'm on this gravel, and I'm stepping into the forest, and I look to my left, and there's a lampshade. There's a floating lampshade glowing in the forest. And I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, I know it's not a lampshade. I know it's them. I know it. And I basically, and then I start floating up. I start floating up faster than I think I should. Like, I'm like, all of a sudden I'm floating up off the forest floor, and I'm looking down at this big inky black, so it's nighttime. There's no lights on it. It doesn't seem to be. It's this inky black circular shape, like a big flying saucer. And I say in the dream, I say, I got to go with this. I got to remember this. I got to go with this. I have the choice to black out. And I said, God damn it, I am not going to black out. I'm going to stay.
Right. I'm going to stay away.
This isn't a dream. This is totally. So I go down this, and all of a sudden I'm inside the craft, it seems, but I'm in this weird electric blue tunnel, like this tube that's, and I'm dropping down, I'm descending this tube, and the walls are like coated with these, like, they're candy colored kind of bright plasticky hieroglyphics all on the walls. And I reach up and I pull one off. It like comes off like a puzzle piece off of like a little kid's toy or something. And I'm holding it in my hand, and I say, I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, this one is important. I have to remember this. And a few other things happen in the dream, but that's kind of, but it was shaped like a W with a hook on one end of it.
Now, when you do this light backpacking, would you say that, well, would you say that more strange events have happened to you out in nature than they have like in your own house and bedroom, or has it just kind of been the same?
I've certainly had some powerful I'll make a plea to the universe when I'm out backpacking. Like I often do. I don't do it every time, but I've some nights when I'm sleeping out, if everything's right, I don't mess with it. I don't like overuse it. Like if I'm struggling with something, I'll ask the universe for help. Basically, I'm praying to the stars. And I've had some powerful stuff show up after that.
Yeah, I can relate. I can definitely relate.
So I go to drive to Laughlin, Nevada, and I'm driving. I go visit some friends in some Sedona, and I meet this. So when I'm driving I'm with my friend Natasha. I picked her up at the airport, and we're going to the conference together. So driving through the on the way to Sedona, and there's this section where I'm like totally empty. And I was like, I gotta use the bathroom. So let me just run up. I'm just drinking a lot of coffee, and so I just step out to pee, and all of a sudden I'm standing there, and I'm standing on the gravel, and I'm looking at the forest, and it's the same exact forest in the dream that was the night before. And actually it was 2 nights, excuse me, it was 2 nights before. And I was like, and I told Natasha about this dream, and I'm like, and I get back in the car and I said, that forest, and I looked around for the glowing lampshade. There was nothing there. So, and I was like, this was exactly the spot that we were supposed to meet. So then the next morning in Sedona's a funny place. There's like hippies and stuff there. So there's this kind of funny guy at the coffee shop, and Natasha gets to talking to him, and he looks like a kind of a cross between a hobo and a philosophy professor. And he's got this big gray beard, and he's kind of dressed kind of with a
Alan Watts,
kind of jaunty and stuff. And he's a tarot reader and a Kabbalist. And so we sit there, and he's like, well, you might know, like his name is Joseph Mark. And I was like, I had this dream 2 nights ago. You know about symbols and stuff like that. I said, yeah, I'm pretty good with symbols. So I draw this on a napkin at the restaurant. Like I draw the shape of the W with a hook on it. And I hand it to him. I said, so what do you know about this shape? And he looks at it for a second. He's like, well, and he flips it over. It's my initials, JM. Right. So the hook of the W turns into a J, and then it's JM. And I just thought that was so funny. That was such a playful little funny synchronicity, that little one.
So you've been getting these signs. Like, what do you think when you say like synchronicity, right? Obviously we know what that is. Like Carl Jung has a whole book on synchronicities. But do you think that it's something, earlier you mentioned like, oh, I'm going down the river, right? Do you think these things really lead to an awakening about yourself, or just kind of lead to a truth that maybe we all need to find out? I know that's a weird kind of deep question, but I feel like...
No. This is exactly where I'm at as far as wrestling with this. That's a perfect thing. These are the waters I'm swimming in. Yeah. So I have come to look at synchronicity like people say, it's a signpost along the path. I'm like, no, that's not. It's too easy. Like if you're on a boat on the ocean, you don't have GPS, like before GPS, and you have a compass. It's all you got is a compass. Like if it's a cloudy day and you're on the ocean, you have no sense of direction. So you need a compass to give you a sense of direction. And that's what I think synchronicity is. It's a compass more than a sign. So yes, I use it. I changed my life. Synchronicities would fall into my place. And I made a conscious decision, like, I'm going to follow this. I'm going to pay attention to this. I'm going to follow this. And I changed my life because of synchronicities. And I'm at the place now where I'm writing these books, and I'm getting emails all the time with powerful, beautiful owl stories. I feel honored to be able to archive these stories and be able to collect these stories and be able to, I help people. I mean, I recognize that people are grateful, and they're asking for my help when they contact me. So yes, I mean, there's all kinds of things I could be doing where I could make more money, but it has been remarkably rewarding at the deepest levels to follow and trust these synchronicities.
What do you think of David Pilatus' missing 411? Have you looked into that at all? Like the people that just end up missing, does this correspond? I'm just curious. Does this correspond with the abduction thing at all? I'm not trying to get dark here.
Yeah. Oh, I know just what you're saying. It has the same flavor in a way of some UFO type events, right? So he's very open. I've listened to him. He's like, the people from the UFO crowd, they always say, oh, they're being abducted by aliens and taking them back. And he's like, but there's never, he doesn't have like UFO sightings. He may in some of his cases, I don't know, but I mean, he must have thousands of cases at this point. But, so he's very, they are weird. Yeah. You know who's a better person to talk to? Have you talked with Joshua Cutchin?
No.
You got to talk to him because he wrote a book called The Thieves of the Night, where he compares and contrasts ancient fairy lore to the modern UFO lore. And he also wraps Bigfoot and sort of the David Paulides thing in there too, where there's these commonalities that show up. One of them is boulder fields, especially with fairies, Bigfoot and the David Paulides things. These things often show up in boulder fields.
It's just so freaky to me, the amount of cases that look, we probably couldn't count the amount of UFO sightings, what MUFON's got, what UFO Seekers has. I mean, there's probably thousands of them, right? But the one thing that impacts me the most, the two biggest things actually, is the hybridization stuff, these weird sexual experiences both men and women are having, and missing people. There's that many cases of people just gone, and I understand that some of them could be natural occurrences, but they can't. And
I think David Paulides weeds those out as far as he's very cautious what he would consider like the cases that he uses. Yeah, I mean, he's only putting in those books the really weird ones.
Yeah, because if you talk to skeptics about it, that's what they always say. It's like, well, it's probably natural stuff, and you're thinking you're not really looking at the fine print here. Like, why won't you admit that there's weird stuff going on, man?
Yeah.
I have a hard time with it. So after that, I don't know. I get, if you can't tell, I get a little frustrated with skeptics are good, but the professional skeptics I get frustrated with, the ones that just won't give up on their case no matter what.
Yeah. So it's appropriate to be skeptical of things.
Sure.
Yeah. You're allowed to be skeptical of things. I mean, but then there's like debunkers, or as Christopher Knowles, who you'll be talking to, he coined the term, which I really like. He says skeptics.
Right. Yeah. That's a good phrase for him, for sure. Yeah. So as we go along in your timeline here, I think that the only next thing that I'm thinking about is, in June 2011, there's a post with a photo of small triangular scar on your forearm. That looks wild, man. That looks like something off of Star Trek.
So there's a close up in one of the images, and I did Photoshop one a little bit to make it a little clearer. I remember that when I was in elementary school. So what am I, 10, 11? And I remember that scar. I remember like looking at it thinking, this is so perfect. It is so symmetrical, and it's still there, but I had to shave my arm and kind of like, put it under I had to take the picture like right next to the window in the sunshine and really zoom in. But there's the three dots. Two of them are still very visible. One of them is very faded away, but I recreated it to look like what it would have looked like when I was 10. It's grown over a little bit, and I can barely find it now. This has been 2009. This is 11 years ago. But that is the single most popular post on my blog. It gets more hits than anything continually. I check it occasionally, and it's just like, it's triple the amount of the second highest ranking post. So what it tells me is people all over the world are Googling triangle scar left arm. And I get multiple a week of people contacting me and saying like, I have the same scar, I don't know what to do. I don't know where it comes from. What have you learned? And there's not much I can say. So it's not an inoculation scar that I can come up with it and I've certainly tried to dig through and find that there's like, did I get some sort of inoculation as a little boy?
No, it's too symmetrical, man. It's too symmetrical.
Yeah.
Like it can't be. It's got to be, that's a device, a machine or something, that's what it is. It has to be, and that's just my opinion.
And it's pretty tiny. It's like 3/8 of an inch or something like that from between the 2 points. So it's pretty small, but I remember as a little kid, it was perfect. Perfect. I was just marveled at how the equilateral triangle was just perfect.
So circling back around after that, in 2012, that's when you had the backpack experience where you laid on the ground in February of 2012, I guess, and where you saw the craft on the top of that hill, kind of.
March of 2013, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, March of 2013. And then you wrote a post called, you talk about a post called I Now Know that it took you, he said it took you 50 years to write after the events of March the 10th, and you just couldn't deny the obvious anymore. So
yeah, that was after that. To tell that story properly takes a full half hour, and it's visual with pictures. And because I had a psychic image of a map and all these things lined up on a map and all these events and events with owls. And one of them one of them involves, so of the 3 events in the map, one of them involves me being, this is my memory of me being floated out of a tent, and there was irrational fear associated with this. I was with my friend Natasha. There was like a floating mandala in the tent. So this is a very strange story, and that's told in the most recent book too. And then I float out of the surface of the tent, and I dismissed that as a dream. And at the same time, I woke up the next morning and had a big scratch on my chest that went from my left shoulder to my belly button. And when you looked at it very closely, it wasn't a scratch at all. It looked like like a cat claw or rose thorn had scratched my skin. But when you looked at it very closely, it was a row of tiny little blisters.
That is strange. And not too long after that, in 2015, The Messengers comes out. Then you, along somewhere in your timeline, not too long after that, you find yourself at the Ozark UFO conference, and I'm standing there looking at this guy going, owls? Really? Like, what? And it's so cool to me. This whole thing is so cool to me because I never would have thought, in 2020, from that day in 2020, that I've been talked to you 3 times and then talked about your life story. Right. So yeah, there's a lot to dig in here. I mean, really, come on, Mike. I mean, the timeline just brushes stuff, but if you dig deep into the blog, the essays and the PDFs, I mean, there's enough here to cover a vast field of research that you have on your website. I'm not trying to blow smoke, man. I'm just saying you've done a lot of good work.
Yeah. And thank you. And it feels like I've dedicated myself to this work and the podcasts alone. So that's about 6 years of podcasting. And that was a lot of work and tons of fun. And I got a chance to talk to a lot of people. And I'm doing it again with Whitley now on his show. That's incredible, right? Did you ever imagine that Whitley Strieber would contact you and say, hey, do you want to do a show? That's pretty wild, right? No, it's pretty wild. And it was really, because I remember reading his, I remember he and it's funny, we lived right around the corner from each other in New York City. I lived on Spring Street and he lived on Lafayette. That's like a block away, 2 blocks away, depending on what, and so that was weird. And that was in the same time that he was living there. So, and then, but I remember reading his book. I remember because the movie Wolfen, and there's a movie called The Hunger and stuff like that. I remember all these things. And I knew who he was. Yeah. And I remember when that book came out, I just was like, I looked at the cover and my first thought when I looked at the cover was like, that's not right. Yeah. Which was a funny thing. Like, it's like, no. That's the forehead's just a little different. You're talking about Communion, right? It's just a little wrong. The cover of Communion. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But you didn't think, that's my point. Like in 1987, you look at the cover and you didn't think I'm going to be doing radio shows with this guy and years down the road, No way. No way. Wow, man. I didn't, at that point in my life, I had no knowledge of this. I could tell a few stories. Like I could tell the missing time story and the orange flash at night and a UFO sighting and stuff like that, but I did not take it seriously. Well, I think more and more people are taking you seriously nowadays. Obviously, you've got a list of names of the who's who when it comes to ufology and this stuff that take you seriously now. And it's really cool to have you on the show. I mean, other than the websites, hiddenexperience.blogspot.com and MikeClelland.com, where can people find your shows at and stuff?
as far as the podcast goes.
The new podcast is called The Unseen, and it's on Whitley Strieber's site, which is Unknown Country. You could just Google my name, The Unseen, and it should show up right. And I have a link on my blog to The Unseen. So yeah, would be easy to find. And once a week, I'm doing an hour-long podcast, usually a little more than an hour, and just interviewing, actually, I'm interviewing all my friends.
There you go.
So it's great because it's like, there's people like, I should get this guy a call. I haven't talked to him in ages. And then you can formally set up a full hour to talk. And then that turns into a podcast. So that's been super fun.
Yeah. And I hope to see you. We plan on going, as a radio station to more conferences and events and stuff. So I hope I do run into you again sometime. That would be really cool.
Yeah. It's funny. And I got to say, it's like, I'm a tough sell, I think, because I'm like the UFO subject is pretty far out, right? And then there's a continuum, and there's the nuts and bolts folks who collect government documents, and they're kind of pragmatic. And then on the other end of the continuum is the really weird stuff. And I feel like I'm off the end of that continuum. I feel like the continuum stops, and I've broken past some barrier, and I've crossed the crazy line in a way, just because the stuff I'm archiving and trying to make sense of doesn't have much to do with it still has stuff to do with UFOs, but my sense is that, as I said before, we are dealing with the myth makers of throughout human history.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And that's a perfect phrase too, that you said earlier today or earlier on the show. And listen, it's always a pleasure to talk to you again. I'm sure we'll ask you back on. Hopefully it won't be a year, but I know you're busy, and then, we'll talk to you again, man. I hope you keep doing this, like shows, books, please, for me at least. And I'm being extremely selfish. Don't stop doing this stuff, brother.
Good. Yeah. And I'm there's going to be one thing up any day now, the audiobook for the new book, Hidden Experience, should be available soon. So in my own voice, I read my own blog posts. I thought it would have been hard to have someone else read that. So I'm reading my own journey. Mm-hmm. And that should be out any day now. And I'm very proud of that. I worked very hard on that one.
We'll definitely check that out too. And thanks again for coming on the show, Mike. It's been a real pleasure.
You're very welcome. It's been a delight. Time zipped by. Wow.
Yeah, it has. It's gone by quick. And that's usually what happens when we have a great show, guys. And you guys go check out the website, MikeClelland.com, hiddenexperience.blogspot.com. Go check out his new show, The Unseen, at unknowncountry.com. We'll be back tomorrow night with Open Lines with Darren from Grimerica. Thank you to Pacho, Patrick, all of you guys at the Fringe FM chat. We love you. See you guys tomorrow night. Good night.
On this program do not necessarily reflect those of the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, its sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised.